Here basically is to find out exactly what's going on in the world and find out exactly what the hidden conspiracy there is that's going on today, basically.
It's not just David Icke that's saying this stuff about the moon. There's Alex Collier, the Andromedan contactee, who says that the moon was towed here from Ursa Minor, which is near the Alpha Draconis star system, by the reptilians.
I don't think he's necessarily said anything that I haven't known already, but he's very eloquent, and he's put it together in such a beautiful package that it just makes it very easy for anyone to understand.
I just like the way David puts things across. You know, he's not afraid. He's got no fear in him whatsoever. Doesn't give one iota about what people think, and I think we can all learn from that, definitely.
Ever since I was little, I've always thought that something was wrong. The way that society, because I believe that reality and the system that we live in are two completely different things. I've found it very difficult to concentrate in school because I was always told what to believe. It was very structured, and whenever I used to ask why, nobody could ever give me an answer. And it seems that David Icke seems to give those answers and opens up your perception to new possibilities.
Some concepts of it I can agree with, definitely with the controlling aspect of it, because there's got, like, when you look at the controlling thing, there's got to be a way how they're really keeping us controlled. So I would say with that aspect of it, yeah, I do agree with it.
I have read and I have seen many videos, and I think he's great because there is a lot of truth in everything he says, and there will be a lot of changes from now on.
I admire what he's doing. I think he's got a lot of courage to step out and enlighten a lot of people about what's going on in the world that the majority of us don't really understand or know about. So he's, I give him a thumbs up, really.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I've never done it this long. It's always been 3 times, now it's 4. It'll be 18 by the end of this decade, the way I'm going. What I want to do now is just look in this section at where we are now and how it plays out in this 5-sense reality. We've come down the levels, now plays out here. Manipulation of 5-sense reality. And what I call the coordinates. Because once we realize basic coordinates of where they want to take the world and the methods they use to take us there, suddenly what seems to be a bewildered world and what's going on, it just morphs into clarity. The question is, how do they do it? It's a good question, because at first sight, how do a few control the many? Impossible, but it's not, because of the way they've structured society. Just to very quickly recap, they want to lock humanity in the 5 senses, so we don't perceive beyond it. We're locked in that prison. They have interbreeding bloodlines, computer terminals, I would call them, which play out this interdimensional conspiracy within visible light, what I call the Illuminati bloodlines. And they've set up a structure whereby the bloodlines who answer to the reptilian control system then control the governments, the people in power in all the various institutions. And crucial all the way through is to structure society. I mean, you can symbolize it as a spider's web, or like this as a pyramid. The idea is to hoard advanced knowledge, the kind of stuff we've been hearing about today and more, in the upper levels of this structure. this pyramid within pyramid structure, compartmentalized pyramid, where the few at the top are the only ones that know how it all fits together. And they keep the general population in ignorance of what they know, therefore they have the power, so they can manipulate the perception of the masses by keeping them in ignorance. This is why the education system is not about educating, it's about programming. And they place their people in so-called power. What we are told is at the top of the pyramid of power, presidents, prime ministers, and all these people, in the upper echelons of the pyramid, but nowhere near the top. The real people in power are behind them, in the shadows, and these are the conduits, the presidents, the prime ministers, and all the rest of it, for bringing that agenda into the public arena as changes in laws and legislations and the structure of society. So they compartmentalize all these different pyramids within pyramids so that in the end the banking system is encompassed by a pyramid. I mean, a bank's a pyramid in itself, all hierarchical pyramids, but then the banking system is encompassed by a pyramid, and at the top of that are the same families, most notably the Rothschilds. Same with the businesses. The transnational corporations are compartmentalized pyramids in and of themselves, but they go into a bigger pyramid which encompasses all the transnational corporations. So at that point, they are one corporation, just as at that point, all those banks are one bank. Same with politics, education, all these things. And people in this part of the pyramid here, they go to work, they're not trying to manipulate anybody, they're not trying to create a fascist Orwellian agenda and global state. They just want to go about their careers, earn money, go on holiday, provide for their families. But they don't know how their apparently innocent contribution individually connects with other apparently innocent contributions around the system. When you connect them together, you see it's anything but an innocent direction that it's taking the world. And that's how they keep what's going on in the hands of the few. This is Neil Haig's representation of that. This is the general population, and these are the kind of dark-suit administrators of the system until you get up here to where the control system is. And most even here won't know that exists. Oh, I've just got this order from on high, I don't know where it's come from. Well, maybe we ought to bloody ask, instead of just doing it. And again, it can also be symbolized as the web, where these various strands, they're secret societies, semi-secret organizations, which go out and connect all these apparently unconnected countries, institutions, media organizations, banks, etc. And this Illuminati network, symbolized as the bearded man, spews out all these people who apparently appear to be random. To run for president needs cuckoo land amounts of money. Where do they come from? It comes from here. Where does that money come from? And therefore, you have two people put up for president who are there because of the money provided by this network. Therefore, they've chosen not only who it's going to be, but they've sorted out what the policies are going to be in return for that money. And this is what they do. We think we're choosing our leaders. We're not. It's a myth. And so this structure that I showed you earlier comes into this, where these leaders are put into power to carry out the agenda of the control system, which is why when parties change, whatever they've said in opposition goes out the window and they start acting like the party in government previously that they were criticizing. The common denominator is whoever gets in power basically introduces the control system, and whoever's out of power opposes the control system verbally, which means that you have the illusion of choice when whoever's in power unfolds the agenda. So there is no choice. It's a myth. And they control these institutions and play the people off against each other, divide and rule, both within countries and between countries, keeping everything in a constant state of confusion and conflict. And that's the key. Manipulating confusion and conflict is child's play. Manipulating harmony, manipulating respect between each other is a nightmare. So they have to keep the world in constant states of conflict. Now, when you bring it down to an individual country, as we come down this structure, this is what you find in every country. You had in America, it's a wonderful example, but it plays out all over the world. During the Bush years, Republican, that administration was controlled by a group of people known as neocons, neoconservatives, including all these people like Richard Pearl and all the rest of it. And over here, you have what I call, anyway, the democons. This is a network of people. I put Kissinger in the democons because he's an advisor to Obama at the moment, but he spends most of his time with the neocons, Kissinger. He just goes with whoever's winning. And the democons are a group of people that control the democratic administrations. But the democons and the neocons are controlled by the same force once you get to here. So people think, oh, I voted Republican this time. Oh, I'm going to put the Democrats in because I like that Obama. Got a nice smile. And what you're doing is voting for this, whatever. And that's what's happening in this country. Same thing. And so when people say Big Brother Bush or Big Brother Obama, no, it's not. These are just puppets. Dance. I said dance. When I say jump, I mean Olympic high jump record. This is the thing. You take one mask off, you put another mask on. And because it's a different mask, we think it's a different administration, we think controlled by different forces. No, no. And what you have is the movie playing out in the public arena, people who appear to be in opposition to each other when they're controlled by the same puppeteer. And once you look beyond the movie, that's when you start to see what's really happening in the world. So the cards are moved around in line with an agenda for the constant, incessant centralization of power. And it's done with people who, I keep coming back to, have a DNA with empathy deleted, which means anything goes in pursuit of this agenda. And the people are misdirected, diverted by the way society is manipulated and controlled, increasingly so with more and more laws affecting the fine detail of our lives, so that we spend so much time surviving and rushing around, we don't lift our head up and see what's going on. So puppet people are essential to the few controlling the world. And when we cease to be so, and it's happening more and more, then this will be over. Humans have been put into this round and round and round circular lifestyle where 1 week leads into another week and another week, just a repeating cycle of action and work and sleep and eat and work and sleep and eat for so many people. And this is the structure that they're moving towards. Why? Because when you're the few and you want to control the many, you have to centralize decision-making. The more diversity of decision-making there is, the less control any central point is going to have over it. So what you need to do is constantly centralize power, so control over more and more and more people goes into fewer and fewer hands. We started with a tribal situation a long time ago. The people in the tribe decided what was going to happen. We then brought, as part of this centralization, it's gone over this whole period I'm talking about, the tribes came together into what we call nations. And now, a few people at the center of the nation are dictating to all the former tribes that make up that nation. We're now well into the next stage of that, which is bringing nations together under unions like the European Union, so a few people at the center are now dictating to all those nations, which are made up of all those tribes before. And the next stage of that, which they're already preparing for, is to take us into a world government that would dictate to these unions that are building up, like the European Union, the American Union that they want via the North American Union, the Pacific Union, evolved out of organizations like APEC, Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation, and the African Union, already in place, evolved out of the Organization of African Unity and other bodies. And what they done in many of these unions is start them off as free trade zones, just for jobs, that's all it is, no worries. And then they've turned them into fully fledged dictatorships, which is what happened in the European Union. And the reason is that you've got to centralize power if you want to get more and more control in the hands of the few over more and more people. So coordinates. Some of these things I'm going to talk about in this section are quite controversial, but they need bloody saying, so sod it. Methods of manipulation. Coordinates 2. How do they manipulate this? One of the coordinates, one of the methods of manipulation, a massively important one to understand, is one I've dubbed problem, reaction, solution, where you want to change society in a way that if you do it openly, you'll get resistance, massive resistance from the population. So what you do is you create a problem covertly, you blame someone or something else for it, you pass that fake version of the event through the unquestioning, pathetic mainstream media to the people, unquestioned overwhelmingly and certainly uninvestigated, and you want the people to react to the manufactured problem with outrage, with fear, and you want them to say, do something. What are they going to do about it? At which point you then offer solutions openly with changes in legislation and society and its structure to advance your agenda. And because of the problem reaction solution, you do not get the resistance here that you would have got without the manufactured problem. 9/11 is a bloody classic. Another way of describing this is ordo ab chaos, the Latin motto of the 33rd degree of Scottish Rite of Freemasonry, order out of chaos, problem, reaction, solution. Create the chaos, then offer the order, your change out of that chaos. So like I say, 9/11 was a wonderful, classic, most blatant example of it. You want to change society, so you create a massive problem. As a result of that problem, you offer the solution, all there, written and ready, the Patriot Act in America and around the world, their versions of it, to change society and to launch a war on terror and an invasion of countries like Afghanistan and, by implication, Iraq. This is Zbigniew Brzezinski, President Jimmy Carter's national security advisor and a major mentor going back to the 1980s of Barack Obama. This is what he said in 1997 in his book. Moreover, as America becomes an increasingly multicultural society, it may find it more difficult to fashion a consensus on foreign policy issues, except in the circumstances of a truly massive and widely perceived direct external threat. Therefore, we create one, 9/11, and bingo, we then introduce what we say must happen to stop the terrorists. In other words, we change society and advance our agenda, the Orwellian state and all the rest of it. These buildings were brought down because they were made to come down. And similar buildings around the world that burnt for longer and were much more fierce never came down. And these are the only buildings of their kind who've ever come down because allegedly of fire. The official story of 9/11 has just left the room. And I've gone into that in great detail before. I'm just using it as an example of problem, reaction, solution. But when through the web you control the intelligence agencies, you control the governments, you control the media, and you control countries, and you control the manipulation of fake terrorists like Osama bin Laden, then you've got all the pieces you need to orchestrate the problem, reaction, solution, and to then use this to change society in the image that you have desired. And this is a classic. Adolf Hitler proposing the creation of the Gestapo in Nazi Germany. An evil exists that threatens every man, woman, and child of this great nation. We must take steps to ensure our domestic security and protect our homeland. Or actually, word for word, what was said after 9/11. The Second World War, problem, reaction, solution. This is why it is no paradox, no coincidence or contradiction that the same people can be shown to have funded the Nazis, that funded the Americans and funded the British, overwhelmingly based around the cartel of the Rothschilds. They created Nazi fascism, they created Soviet communism and the capitalist world. They brought them together in conflict, the second conflict in a very short time, and afterwards the world was exhausted mentally, physically, emotionally. Something must be done. This can't go on. What are they going to do about it? Gotcha. Because of all this conflict, all this war, it's terrible. Terrible. What we're going to do is we're going to centralize power with the United Nations, European Union, which was justified in many ways by let's stop European countries fighting among themselves because we'll trade. Well, they stopped fighting among themselves because they stopped orchestrating it. That's why the Bretton Woods Agreement with the World Bank and all that stuff all came in as a result of the Second World War. Then there's another version, which I now call no problem reaction solution. This is when you don't need a real problem, you just need the public perception of a problem, i.e. weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, i.e. human-caused climate change. And then you can offer a solution to a problem that doesn't actually exist, but if enough people think it does, well, you got them. Totalitarian tiptoe, as I call it, goes in conjunction with problem, reaction, solution. This is real simple. You start at A, you know you're going to Z, but you know if you go in a big leap, the change is going to be so big and so quick that people are going to go, what's happening? What's happening? Turn that television show off. What's happening? And so you go in steps, as big as you can get away with, but not so big that you get too much of a reaction. And as this quite rightly said, you really think it would be this obvious. Well, it's becoming that obvious now as we move along, but up to this point it hasn't been, unless you looked for it. The European Union was turned from a free trade zone, nothing to worry about, just for jobs, into what it is now, a centralised dictatorship, through the totalitarian tiptoe. And here is the founding father of the EU, as they call him, Jean Monnet, a Rothschild frontman. Europe's nations should be guided towards the superstate without their people understanding what is happening. This can be accomplished by successive steps, each disguised as having an economic purpose, but which will eventually and irreversibly lead to federation. And the word fascism, which comes from this symbol, the fasci, from the Roman Empire, is individuality tied together and ruled by the axe head. The central point, European Union, precisely described. Globalization, which is the constant centralization of power, which is more and more power in the hands of fewer and fewer over more and more people. This is a totalitarian tiptoe. More and more, the globalized economy is taking over, so that every country is dependent on every other country, therefore has no power of individual action and individual decision-making. Free trade, which means freedom to exploit, which means you can get sweatshop workers here to make your stuff for a few cents, and then you ship it over here and you sell it for as much as you can get. It's called free trade. Everyone's in favour of free trade. You can't be against free trade. This is also part of this globalized centralization of power, which is designed to do this, and it increasingly is doing this. It means that if you're dependent within your country or your community on things outside of your influence, then everyone is dependent on everyone else, therefore has no self-sufficient ability to make decisions in their own lives and their own communities and their own countries. And the reason that they want to do this is they want to make everyone dependent on something outside their control, because dependency equals control. It's like abundance and scarcity. We live in a world which could be incredibly abundant. Nobody should be hungry on this planet, for goodness sake. Africa could feed the bloody world. It can't even feed itself. Why? Because of the manipulation of that continent by this crowd. And so we have all over the world, because there's no empathy, no consequences for them emotionally of their actions, we have manufactured scarcity, because abundance equals choice equals freedom. Scarcity equals dependency equals control. And that's why we have manufactured dependency. We have people hungry in a world of plenty. Coordinate 3, the cement. There are certain organizations, networks, rings, that act as the cement that holds the web together and holds people within the web together. Close to the spider people are the Rothschilds. And when I talk about the Rothschilds, one thing, I'm not talking about all people called Rothschild. The vast majority of people called Rothschild won't have a clue what other Rothschilds in that dynasty are doing. And secondly, I don't even mean only people called Rothschild. I mean the Rothschild bloodline, which has infiltrated many other enormous numbers of other families and groups, which then come to power under other names other than Rothschild. Because if the president's Rothschild, the bloody guy here is Rothschild, the bloody newsreader's Rothschild. What's going on? Instead of that, you have people under different names. So I'm talking about the Rothschild bloodline and the scions of that family, the people that run that family. Not everyone called Rothschild. There's a lot of people in that family called Rothschild who don't have a clue what's going on. But they, through these various cements, control all these different and various apparently unconnected organizations. Now, one of the cements, of course, is the secret society network. That's pretty obvious when you look at it. And these are some of the major ones, but there are even more exclusive ones as well that operate in tiny, tiny cabals. But it's not just the secret society networks. They connect into the satanic networks, where they literally carry out human sacrifice and such horrors, which these bloodlines have been doing all the way through. Now, no one has a problem with the fact that then primitive ancients used to sacrifice people and torture people and all that stuff, But that was at one time kind of acceptable because it was the way they did things. As it's become unacceptable, it's still gone on, same bloodlines involved, but it goes on secretly, obviously. And this is the paedophile rings, the sexual child abuse rings, which connect into that and connect into that. That's not saying everyone in a secret society is a paedophile. It's not saying every Satanist is a paedophile. It's not saying every paedophile is a Satanist from every secret society. But there are rings, connections between these organizations and groups that hold them together. It's a bit like the Olympic rings. They connect into each other. And you find, this is why, as I researched this over these last 20 years, when I have researched through people in power like politicians and bankers and even some media people and stuff like that, you know, after this time of researching this and the recurring themes, that when you get far enough into it, you're going to come across a secret society, but you're almost certainly going to come across either or both Satanism and child abuse, sexual abuse, paedophilia. And there's a reason why the ratio of such people is massive in the upper echelons of this control structure than it is in the general population. There's a blueprint which you find in every community and every country. It's a blueprint of how this works and how the Satanists and the paedophiles and the secret society people end up in positions of power and influence to direct this conspiracy. So the paedophilia and the secret societies and the Satanists operating in these interconnecting rings then infiltrate their people right across the web, which holds the whole thing together. Now, Satanism is staggeringly common compared with the public perception of it. And there's a number of reasons for it. First of all, they're sacrificing people literally to the gods, the serpent gods. When you see these ancient accounts all over the world of how they used to sacrifice people, young virgins often, and what does young virgins code for? Children, to the gods, because they put them through the sacrifice ritual and they build up the terror. What happens is the terror reaches a point where a certain adrenaline pours into the blood, and the people doing the ritual then drink that blood and they get a real high from that adrenaline. But as the sacrifice is going on, the victim is also releasing energy, very powerful, low vibrational energy, and the entities, or entity, whatever it is, just outside of visible light is feeding off that energy. They're feeding off us like vampires in so many ways, and that's one of them, and one of the reasons for these sacrifices of people to the gods. The other thing is that they, and I've talked to Satanists who've seen this happen, or former Satanists around the world, they create an energetic environment which is almost a stepping stone, like halfway house, which allows these entities to come in to the ritual. I've talked to people who've seen these entities manifest in the rituals because of the way they have created the energetic environment. Anyone who's looked even mildly at this whole conspiracy in this area will know about Bohemian Grove in Northern California, where the elite, the presidents, the Bushes, the Kissingers, the Rockefellers, all these people go and take part in rituals under a 40-foot stone owl. And from what I am told by people who've been there in a victim state, they, in smaller groups, because it's 2,700 acres of redwood forest, actually do sacrifices there too. And all these people are involved with their satanic gods and all the rest of it. But it happens all over the world, and it happens in a sequence on certain days. You know, we've got a situation with Halloween where it's now like bloody Christmas. If people only knew what happens on Halloween, what happens across Beltane, May Day and all that stuff, to kids all over the world, in extraordinary numbers, there would be no celebration of Halloween. And what they're doing on one level, because they're interacting with the cycles, the astrological cycles, is why they do it at certain times when the planets, the moon probably, and everything is in a certain place, is they're manipulating what they refer to as the morphic field, the energy that we all live in. Like I said earlier, if you want to affect the fish all at once, then affect the sea. And in the new book, in an appendix at the end, I published this. I call it Confessions of a Satanist. It came to light early this year and it is alleged to be, I can't vouch for its authenticity. What I can say is after 20 years of researching this, it's bloody massively accurate. And it's supposed to be a guy who died in 2004. He was a high Satanist in Australia who, wasn't really a confession in the sense of I want to confess my sins. It was just basically an outline of how Satanism controls the world. And this is one of the things he says in that. What most people do not realize is that Satanism is a ritually based practice, and that this repetition, same place, same time, has over time left strong impressions upon the morphic field. They have to control the morphic field so that we stay in a low vibrational state, so we stay attached to that moon matrix I'm talking about. And of course, as I was saying, we are interacting with this field all the time, and taking in energy into the meridian system from it, and therefore it is affecting us. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm saying that this is part of the process of suppressing that field also, which is why they stuck them on vortex points. Now let's take this connection from Satanism, blood drinking, taking in the human genetic code to stay here longer, which is what some of these reptilians do, and the paedophilia. What's it all about? It's about energy. It's about vampiring the energy of children. The reason that we have sacrifice to the gods of young virgins, children, is because they want the energy of children before puberty, because when puberty happens, there is obviously we all know, there is a chemical change, massive chemical change, at which point, from their point of view, the energy is not as pure and desirable. This is what John Juan Matos said in one of the Carlos Castaneda books. He's being quoted here by Castaneda. Matos is the he. He explained that sorcerers saw infant human beings as strange luminous balls of energy, covered from the top to the bottom with a glowing coat, something like a coat of plastic adjusted tightly around the cocoon of energy. He said that glowing coat of awareness was what the predators consumed, and that when a human reached adulthood, all that was left of that fringe awareness was a narrow fringe that went from the ground to the top of the toes. That fringe permitted mankind to keep on living, but only barely. And that, although the pedophiles won't realize that, although the elite ones will, is what the paedophilia is all about, and why it is so rampant in the upper echelons of this control system. Because while the paedophile is sexually abusing the child, symbolically here, it is connecting into the energy field of the child. This is why they have anal sex with children so much, even girls. It's because they're connecting in to the lower chakra, the base chakra, and they're drawing that energy out, or the possessing entity is drawing it out and feeding off it. This is why pedophiles tend to be overwhelmingly possessed people, because the possessing entity drives the lust for sex with children, and then when it happens, they draw the energy off it, drawing the child's life force out. And politicians in this control system, again, this is why paedophilia is rampant among the political classes. This is what the Satanist confession said as well, that Australian guy. Politicians are introduced by a carefully graded set of criteria and situations that enable them to accept that their victims, children, will be our little secret. Young children sexually molested and physically abused by politicians worldwide are quickly used as sacrifices. In Australia, the bodies are hardly ever discovered, for Australia is still a wilderness. In countries that are not a wilderness, they control the mortuaries and the crematoria, where they get rid of children who they want rid of because of what's happened. And it is rampant. I keep using that word, but it is. People don't realize. What happens is, people think or relate the number of children that go missing every year to the number of times we see a story on the news that a child is missing and everyone's trying to find them. That is the tiniest tip of the iceberg. Hundreds of thousands of children go missing in America every year. I've rung the states, because they don't have federal figures, tell you how many cars went missing federally, but not children. They said, you've got to ring the states. I rung a load of states years ago now. I said, how many children go missing every year? How many children went missing last year? And I added the figures up. What? Never seen this on the news, hundreds of thousands. Some of them are found, some of them have explanations. Not all, nothing like. And what happens is that you have the cover-up. There are so many stories where the story of this Satanism and this child abuse starts to come to light, and immediately the lid goes on because the system controls the various aspects that can keep the lid on. This is just one example. There's endless numbers around the world. The Franklin cover-up. It was an investigation by this guy, John W. DeCamp, who was former state senator in Nebraska, and he started investigating this guy, Lawrence King, a major Republican who sang the American national anthem in 1984 and 1988, I think it was, at the Republican convention. And he was investigating him for financial fraud through an organization called the Franklin Savings and Loans. But then he discovered that he's running a pedophile ring and providing children for the biggest names in America. And he wrote this book, The Franklin Cover-Up, Child Abuse, Satanism, again, they go together all the time, and murder in Nebraska. And what happened? Some of it got into this Washington Times, a mainstream newspaper, the connection to the Reagan-Bush administration, but most of it was totally covered up. I've been writing in my books now since 1998 that Father George Bush is a notorious paedophile, child torturer, child killer, and serial killer of adults as well. Said it on American radio. Still waiting for a response. And this is one example. A lady who became a friend of mine, Kathy O'Brien, who was in the American government mind control project since she was a kid, and met her many times. She still corresponds with me now and again, and I've met a daughter that she was talking about. Lovely, lovely girl, totally shattered by these people. And that's one example of millions and millions that are going on around the world. And this is what she said in a book, Transformation of America. Kelly's bleeding rectum was but one of many physical indicators of George Bush's paedophile perversions. I have overheard him speak blatantly of his sexual abuse of her on many occasions. He used this and threats to her life to pull my strings and control me. The psychological ramifications of being raped by a paedophile president are mind-shattering enough. But reportedly, Bush further reinforced the traumas to Kelly's mind with sophisticated NASA electronic and drug mind control devices. Bush also instilled the "who you're gonna call and I'll be watching you" binds on Kelly, further reinforcing her state of helplessness. The systematic tortures and trauma that I endured as a child now seem trite by comparison. They're not. I know what she went through. To the brutal physical and psychological devastation that George Bush inflicted on my daughter. And that's just one of these people involving one of the victims of this. It's incredible, the scale of it, and it's going on in this country. And what happens? The wall goes up. This is what DeCamp found. Suddenly ranks are pulled in, and the media won't touch it, the social services won't touch it, the police won't touch it, politicians won't touch it. It's the blueprint, it's how it works. And the Discovery Channel programme, produced by Yorkshire Television, was about to go to air exposing that Franklin cover-up and the paedophile connections. Bingo, it was censored and pulled just before it was going to air. Never to see the light of day, although you can get it on the internet, because one copy survived. I was naming this guy, like I said earlier, Ted Heath, as a paedophile and child murderer from 1998. This guy's record of killing children is extraordinary. Prime Minister of this country. This fella, Thomas Hamilton, the man who went into Dunblane Primary School and killed 16 children and a teacher, he was a procurer of children for the Scottish political elite, which locks into the Westminster political elite, and the satanic rings that lock into both. That's why they took the records of this case and ordered them to be locked away for 100 years. And then, if you've been following my website recently, and many other websites too, Here you have the classic blueprint again. Everywhere you go, same blueprint. This girl, Holly Gregg, Down syndrome girl, her mother Anne, and Robert Greene, a fantastic guy who's been helping them and committed so much of himself to this. When she started, Holly started saying what had happened to her, being raped and abused by the Scottish elite, suddenly the wall went up again. And Robert was arrested. He's been treated appallingly by the police, the Grampian police in Scotland. Grampian area of Scotland, by the way, notorious for Satanism. And he's now basically been told what he can't say, and he can't name people and all the rest of it. And he's, the case is ongoing. The media won't touch it, though maybe that might be changing, we hope. The Scottish law network or establishment will not investigate it. The police won't investigate it properly. Anne's brother, Holly's uncle, was blatantly murdered when he had seen Holly's father abusing her, and therefore had the ability to tell the truth and tell the story. He ended up murdered. And a cover story of suicide. When you see the story, suicide, are you kidding, was put together by the Grampian police. And Robert Greene is a man who, if there were more of his like in this world, then this world would be a very much better place. And Robert's actually here today, so thank you, Robert, very much for all you're doing. This is how they create the wall. You have again the pyramid system. Social services is a pyramid, a hierarchical pyramid. The police is, lawyers are, judges are, politicians are, the media are, all of it. The medical side, the doctors, the coroner's offices, they're all part of these structures. And up here, they all eventually fuse into the same group, the same ring of people, controlling force. And what they do is they put in these pyramids people in the positions of power who are in the ring, or in the club. You do not have to control everybody in social services to stop investigations or to enforce investigations to take children away for no good reason. You just have to control the level of social services that makes those decisions. And of course, once you're in a position in these pyramids where you are hiring and firing, what you do is you hire people of like mind, and after a period of time, then a lot of these people are in these organizations at different levels. You don't have to control every policeman. There's so many genuine policemen in this world, but they don't get into the positions of power overwhelmingly. The Geese guys do. And therefore, they dictate whether something's investigated or not, or whether someone is targeted to pin them with a charge that is completely unjustifiable. Same with the media. You control that. We're not covering that story. Politicians, oh no, I'm not talking about that. I'm not investigating that. Oh no. This is how it's done. This is David Berkowitz, the son of Sam, multiple killer in New York, who from prison after he was convicted said that he did it, yes, but he was part of a satanic ring that was with him. And he said this, quite rightly: Satanists are peculiar people. They aren't ignorant peasants or semi-literate natives. Rather, their ranks are filled with doctors, lawyers, businessmen, and basically highly responsible citizens. They are not a careless group who are apt to make mistakes, but they are secretive and bonded together, the cement, by a common need and desire to mete out havoc on society. It was Aleister Crowley who said, "I want blasphemy, murder, rape, revolution, anything bad." And now we're having around the world, not least in this country, but America too and other countries, we're having the state stealing our children on the most extraordinary scale, with the most extraordinary excuses. There was one lady who came to light, not many do compared with the ones that are going on, because of the secret family courts where this stuff goes on in secret and can't be reported. Or they say, oh, it's to protect the children. No! It's to protect the paedophiles and the Satanists. That's what the secrecy is for. And this lady, her and her husband had spent £38,000 on fertility treatment so they could have children. She had twins, I think it was twins, and she made a joke when social services came round, when the baby came out of hospital, and she said, oh, birth has ruined my figure. It took her children away. And then when she furiously resisted, they said, the mother has anger problems, which are a danger to the child. It's unbelievable the number of children that have been taken away from their parents for no reason. This guy, Tim Yeo, a Conservative MP, just before the last election, said in Parliament, using parliamentary privilege, he accused his local council of kidnapping a 9-week-old baby from parents. But it's the tip of an iceberg, and a gathering iceberg. All over the world, like I say in the book, I've looked at America as well, it's happening there. And what did Aldous Huxley, the Fabian prophet in Brave New World, talk about? The fact that children were going to be taken away from parents, parents were going to become no longer, not even relevant, they're no longer even part of society, and the state was going to take control and bring up all children. And that is where they're moving towards. And this guy, Ed Balls, my God, whoever named him was psychic. He was children's minister up to the last recent election, overseeing, taking more and more power away from parents, giving it to schools and authorities. And this guy is a former chairman of the executive of the Fabian Society and still a leading light in it. Coordinates to the cement. Now, this might be controversial. I don't give a damn, really, because, we've reached the point here where we've got to start saying what is and not running away from it. What I'm about to say now virtually no one else, there are some, and some that, some of them are characters I don't really would like to spend an evening with, to be honest, and some are. But most people, the overwhelming majority of people in what we call conspiracy research, won't touch this subject, right? Well, I'm going to bloody touch it because I'm sick of it. And I'm sick of people being frightened and intimidated into not touching it. Thank you. Right. First of all, we as a human race have got to get our fricking heads around what this is, because it ain't what we're told it is. It's not about what's right and beneficial for Jewish people. Jewish people are its victims, not its beneficiaries. Jewish people have been hung out to dry again and again by this crowd that claim to have their best interests at heart, like hell they do. That's why I call this Rothschild Zionism. It was created by them, it is controlled by them to this minute, and it was created as a secret society within the web to massively contribute to the manipulation and control of our global society and individual countries, etc., etc. It's Rothschild Zionism. Anti-Zionism is not anti-Semitism, not that anti-Semitism means what we think it does, because Zionism is not about Jewish people. Even in its play-out way or world, it is a political system, a political philosophy. At its core, it is a secret society putting its agents in places of power. One of the very few things that Joe Biden, Vice President of the United States, has ever said, which is true, is you don't have to be Jewish to be a Zionist. Because of the propaganda, we equate Zionism with Jewish people. It's not how it is. To a very, very large extent. How many people know this? How many Jewish people around the world are protesting, have organizations created to protest against Zionism? Zionism and Judaism are diametrically opposed. Zionism is state-organized terror. How many times do we see this in the newspapers? Never. End of Zionism equals peace. Israel, stop killing Palestinians. I am Jewish and I want that. Why don't we hear about this? We condemn any Zionist aggression against Iran. I thought every Jewish person in the world wanted to bomb Iran. That's what the media seem to give us an indication about. Another Jew against Zionism. Over and over. Zionist spokesmen do not represent world Jewry. How many people... I thought Ahmadinejad of Iran is supposed to be the great demon of all Jewish people. Look at it. The demonization comes from Rothschild Zionism. We've been totally misled about what it is. Rothschild dynasty created Israel. It paid for the first people out of Europe to go and people Israel after the war. It paid for the building of the Knesset. It paid for the building of the Supreme Court building with all its Illuminati symbols all over it. And some of the people who've broken out of the family, I quote one of them in my book, have actually said, and as I've been saying for years, because it's bloody obvious, that Israel is not the homeland of Jewish people, it is the fiefdom of the Rothschild dynasty, created out of Rothschild Zionism, a secret society. And Rothschild Zionism has been used via Israel to devastate, slaughter, torture an entire nation of human beings, while claiming to be against terrorism. This is the dictionary definition of genocide: the systematic and widespread extermination or attempted extermination of an entire national, racial, religious or ethnic group. Never can what is happening in Palestine and Gaza have been described so accurately. More and more people killed through war, killed through bombing attacks, killed through shootings, killed through lack of food and adequate medical care. Gaza, the most crowded piece of land on earth, is little more, ironically, than a concentration camp. And the world looks on. This is the face of Palestine. Well, tell me what you see. Combat boots. Yeah, another terrorist 5-year-old. And all the time, Palestinian homes are being demolished in occupied land and given over to these extremist settlers who believe they have a right to it because it says so in some bloody Bible. And then we've got this security fence, which has taken great tracts of Palestinian land, right, all against international law and all the rest of it. And here is a children's playground being sacrificed as the wall continues, security fence continues its endless way. This green is Palestinian land in 1946. Then we see what has happened since. This is 2000. We're in 2010 now. It's much smaller than that. What was I saying? The systematic and widespread extermination or attempted extermination of an entire national, racial, religious or ethnic group. And I say to these Rothschild Zionists, don't you bloody dare talk about racism of others when you are behind this. Israel is an apartheid society, not just between Israelis and Palestinians, but through Israeli society. It's incredibly apartheid. The way they treat the black Jews from Ethiopia is absolutely grotesque. As is spokesman doing that, then talking about other people's racism. We've got to go for that. And people, Jewish people, have seen it. They can see what it is. There's some fantastic Jewish people in Israel who are resisting this. Young people who go to jail because they won't serve in the army because of what the army's doing to the Palestinians. Magnificent people who never get talked about in the mainstream media hardly. And no matter what, he said about Israel, this is Israel's response. Why? Because Israel is the fiefdom of the Rothschild dynasty, which also controls the American administration, the British administration, and so Rothschild's one arm is not going to criticize Rothschild's other arm. In the Matrix movie, there's something called the Zion mainframe. Well, Zionism, Rothschild Zionism, is in so many ways a mainframe of this network. And it pervades all the way through. And it's not about, oh, these Jewish people here and these Jewish people there. It's Rothschild Zionists who are there, and they answer to the Rothschild dynasty. Therefore, they play out the agenda of the web in a coordinated way. Now, before I start this, a lot of names coming up. I'm going to go just through a bit of the American administration and a few other things, just to give you a feel for it, for people that haven't seen the extent of this. Before I start, one fact. Jewish people in America are less than 2% of the population. A significant number of them will not be Rothschild Zionists, and therefore the ratio of Rothschild Zionists is even smaller, significantly smaller than the 2%. Okay. Obama's immediate handler is a guy called Rahm Emanuel. He has served in the Israeli army. He's the White House Chief of Staff. He does whatever he says. His father, Emanuel's father, was a terrorist in the Irgun terrorist group that bombed Israel into existence in 1948. And this is the relationship between Rahm Emanuel, he's the kind of Peter Mandelson of America, and Obama. Hey, you want a Nobel Peace Prize? I can sort it, son. I can sort it, son. No problem. All pictures like that, by the way, are by a guy called David Dees, who's a political artist, brilliant, American, works out of Sweden. Uses images so powerfully to tell 1,000 words as they go. This guy is the second handler in the White House. His name's David Axelrod, Rothschild Zionist. And he was the man who orchestrated the entire election campaigns of Obama against Hillary Clinton and then against John McCain. The main funder and orchestrator of the funding, in terms of individuals, of Obama was a guy called George Soros, Rothschild Zionist, who manipulates countries and uses his networks and funding to create coups in countries where they want to change the regime change. And he bets on currencies like he bet on the pound years ago and makes a fortune out of the demise of the economy of other countries because he has no empathy. Henry Kissinger, massive Rothschild Zionist, has served that dynasty's agenda for 40 years, if not 50 years. And he's now an advisor to Obama, even though he's officially a Republican. The American economy, the American economic team, is led by Timothy Geithner, Treasury Secretary, Rothschild Zionist, and Larry Summers, Rothschild Zionist. The entire Obama budget is run by the budget director, Peter Orszag, Rothschild Zionist. This man was advising the Russian treasury when the Russian governments were giving state assets away to Rothschild Zionist oligarchs, including Roman Abramovich, the owner of Chelsea Football Club, by the way. It's very easy to become a billionaire when a state says, have these assets worth billions of pounds. Thank you very much. It's a piece of cake. You could buy a football club if you want. And this man's company was also advising the Icelandic central bank in the run-up to the Icelandic crash. The Federal Reserve in America, which controls the American economy in so many ways, it's a privately owned, not government-owned central bank, and it's privately owned by the Rothschilds and the affiliates of the Rothschilds, is Bernard Bernanke, Rothschild Zionist. He replaced Alan Greenspan, Rothschild Zionist, who was head of the Federal Reserve from Reagan Bush right up into the Boy Bush administration, and he systematically took away the checks and balances which allowed the mayhem of 2008 to unfold. We keep hearing about Goldman Sachs and all the mayhem that it's created, both in the crash of 2008 and the crash of the economy in Greece, fundamentally involved Goldman Sachs. Goldman Sachs is a fiefdom of the Rothschilds, headed by Lord Blankfein, Rothschild Zionist. The World Bank, headed by a Rothschild Zionist. The IMF, International Monetary Fund, headed by a Rothschild Zionist. European Central Bank, headed by a Rothschild Zionist. A stream of so-called czars, as they call them in America, controlling different policies and areas, policy areas of the Obama administration, Rothschild Zionists, including Cass Sunstein, who has actually written a paper saying people who have conspiracy theories should either be banned from expressing them or taxed for expressing them. Taxed! Climate change policy in the Obama administration is controlled by Carol Brown, a Rothschild Zionist, and Todd Steen, Rothschild Zionist. Major area of policy. The American administration is utterly awash with Rothschild Zionists, and that is not by accident. It's because they're agents of the dynasty or agents of the control system. It's not about race. Mossad is not the intelligence agency of Israel. It's the intelligence agency of the Rothschilds, and that's why it turns up all over the world in false flag set up terrorist events and assassinations and all that stuff, because it's not carrying out the policy of Israel, it's carrying out the policy of the Rothschilds that control Israel. Now let's look at 9/11. The World Trade Center lease was purchased just a few weeks before 9/11 by Larry Silverstein, Rothschild Zionist, and Frank Lowy, Rothschild Zionist, and the deal was done with this guy called Eisenberg, Louis Eisenberg, Rothschild Zionist, the head of the New York Port Authority. The head of the CIA, who investigated what happened on 9/11, George Tenet, Rothschild Zionist. The Patriot Act, which was brought out, the Orwellian Take Your Freedoms Away Patriot Act in America, was co-authored, justified by 9/11, though it was written before because they knew it was coming, by Michael Chertoff, whose mother was a Mossad agent and who became the second head later of Homeland Security, an organization Orwellian that was justified by 9/11. At the time of 9/11, in the run-up to it, and then the war on terror and all that stuff, the Pentagon was dominated by Paul Wolfowitz, Rothschild Zionist, Dov Zakheim, the comptroller, who managed to lose trillions of dollars and still got away with it. And by the way, when one announcement was made of how much he'd lost or had gone missing in the Pentagon, they announced it on September the 10th, 2001. I wonder if they realized that because of that, it would never see the light of day. Dov Zakheim, Rothschild Zionist, and people like Douglas Feith or Feith, Rothschild Zionist in the Pentagon. Now, as I've said earlier, the Bush administration was dominated and controlled by what became known as the neocons, the neoconservatives, which were a Rothschild Zionist organization, led by people like Richard Pearl, Rothschild Zionist, William Crystal, Rothschild Zionist, John Bolton, Rothschild Zionist, in belief in nothing, if nothing else. And then the 9/11 Commission report, which was the official report investigating 9/11. They wanted Kissinger to head it first until the public didn't take that seriously and he had to step down. But that report, which agreed that the official story of 9/11 was true, was written and overseen by Philip Zelikow, Rothschild Zionist. The judge, Alvin Hellerstein, who is hearing and overseeing the cases of the 9/11 families, who are taking out lawsuits to try to find the truth of 9/11, etc., Rothschild Zionists, making sure that truth never comes out. Think of the ratio I said earlier as I go through this. The man who coined the phrase, he was a Bush speechwriter, the axis of evil, which targeted Iraq before they invaded Iran and North Korea, was David Frum, Rothschild Zionist. So when you look at this, because Israel is the fiefdom of the Rothschilds, you see that this dynamics, or you'd think, is the man of 300 million people, the superpower, is the most powerful of the two. No. He is controlled from there. Because the Rothschilds control them. Do you know Israel has the second biggest F-16 fleet in the world? The biggest outside of America? It's a slither of land. How did they get them? Dov Zakheim, as comptroller of the Pentagon, Rothschild Zionist, made a load of weaponry and planes in America scrap when they weren't, so they could be passed for a song to Israel. These two guys, they produced a book last year, The Israel Lobby and US Foreign Policy, and they say this: Israel receives about $3 billion in direct foreign assistance each year, which is roughly 1/5 of America's entire foreign aid budget. In per capita terms, the United States gives each Israeli a direct subsidy worth about $500 a year. This largesse is especially striking when one realizes that Israel is now a wealthy industrial state with a per capita income roughly equal to South Korea and Spain. Another writer, a former BBC and ITN journalist, produced a book, Zionism, the Real Enemy of the Jews, and my God, is that true? And he points out, Jewish people make up less than 2% of the American population, but account for 50%, I would say Rothschild Zionists, 50% of the political campaign contributions. And that's why, no matter how these people argue at election time, including this country and others, they're all agreed on one thing. What goes on in Gaza? Keep quiet, keep your head down. And I block that out because I don't want anyone to see what's behind it. It's horrific. This man, magnificent Israeli, called Mordecai Vanunu, went to jail for 18 years for revealing the truth that Israel is a nuclear power. He's still got massive restrictions on his movement and what he can say. And you know, and he announced officially that he was continuing it. There is an official policy that on Israel's nuclear weaponry, America doesn't ask and Israel doesn't say. That's an official policy. Iran hasn't even got it yet, and they want to invade the bloody place. This lady, Kay Griggs, was married to a colonel in the United States Marine Corps, and as a result, she was given a tour of the Middle East section of the State Department. There's a video on the internet where she tells of her experience. And what she says is, everywhere she went was Zionists. Everywhere she went was Zionist literature, in room after room in this department. And eventually she said to one of them, "Where's the Palestinians?" And they're looking after them. And she said, one of them said, "We look after that." Palestinians have got no bloody chance. It's a stitch-up. The main lobby group in America is called AIPAC, America-Israel Public Affairs Committee, which sounds like an official, but it's a lobby group. It's headed by a guy called Lee Rosenberg, who is a very close friend of him and comes from the same political cesspit that we call Chicago. So when this question is asked, Americans, do you dare to say Israeli terrorism? No, because of the way it's controlled, like I say. The Rothschild Zionists control the media and Hollywood. Don't take my word for it. Los Angeles Times columnist Joel Steen, Rothschild Zionist, wrote an article proclaiming that Americans who don't think Jews, I would say Rothschild Zionists, control Hollywood, are just plain dumb. I had to scour the trades to come up with 6 Gentiles in high positions at entertainment companies, but lo and behold, even one of that 6, AMC President Charles Collier, turns out to be a Jew. As a proud Jew, I want America to know of our accomplishment. Yes, we control Hollywood. Leading Israeli paper columnist said, the Jews, Rothschild Zionists I would say again, the Jews do control the American media. This is very clear, and claiming otherwise is an insult to common knowledge. And what do the media do? They keep the truth from us and keep us diverted from what's really going on. It's an elephant in the bloody living room, and people are terrified of going there because they're terrified of being called racist and anti-Semitic and all that. They'll call you anti-Semitic. I don't give a shit. I don't give a shit. Very quickly, it's the same in this country. There was a very, very good documentary, and it was a kind of stand back in amazement that it actually got out, by a guy called Peter Oborne, a journalist, in the Dispatches series on Channel 4 that looked at the Rothschild Zionist control of British politics through organisations known as the Friends of Israel. Each party has one, but of course they all connect, so it's actually one network. And again, just like in America, never any criticism. The British government, under Tony Blair and much of it under Gordon Brown to the end, was controlled by Peter Mandelson, Rothschild Zionist. Note the hands. Rothschild Zionist. He even flaunts it, this guy. Goes on holiday with them. In all the papers with this leading light of the family, Jacob Rothschild. So many Rothschild Zionists end up in government here, like the possible leader of the Labour Party, David Miliband, Foreign Secretary before the election, Ed Miliband, Head of Climate Change and Environment, and this guy, Jack Straw, who's been in so many of the major offices since Blair came to power in 1997. The new Prime Minister of Britain, David Cameron, Rothschild Zionist. This guy, Tony Blair, was completely controlled by them, as Bush was, which is why they moved as one unit to do what the Rothschilds wanted, which was to invade Iraq and Afghanistan. And to shut people up, the Rothschilds have created organisations like the Anti-Defamation League. They haven't sent me a bloody Christmas card for years, these people. I don't want to upset them or what. But I'm speaking in New York in October. That could be funny. Anyway, they set these organisations up to target those people who are saying the sort of things that I'm saying. The idea is to throw you're a racist at people, so to shut them up or to discredit them. Like I say, I don't give a shit. You throw it, son, and I'll hit the bugger back. Thank you very much. As a result, when you criticise Israel, you are promoted as criticising Jewish people and therefore being racist. This is how it works. And I have to say, the robot radicals on the so-called left of politics are played like a violin by these people. They go out and they protest, "You're an anti-Semite!" Okay, come in and listen to what I'm going to say. No, they never bloody do. And then you get people like the magnificent Norman Finkelstein, who's a Jewish man who's had his academic career destroyed for speaking out. His parents suffered in the concentration camps of Nazi Germany, and when he exposes these frauds and fakes in the Rothschild Zionist movement and what they do against Jewish people in general, he's called a self-hater. They can't say he's anti-Semitic, although sometimes they even use that. He's a self-hater. No, he's a decent man doing decent things. You want to try it? And the idea is to create, and they're doing it, hate laws in which truth is no defence. Even though what you say is true, it's no defence. If people are upset by it, then too bad, you've broken the hate laws. They're now targeting the internet, which has been so magnificent in communicating this information. And who's doing that? In America, J. Rockefeller, Rothschild Zionist. In this country, up to the last election, he rushed through a bill to this effect just before the election, Peter Mandelson, Rothschild Zionist. And just this week, Obama has nominated this lady, Eleanor Kagan, the Solicitor General, to go onto the Supreme Court. Two things. One, that will make Rothschild Zionists making up nearly half the Supreme Court judges of America, 4 of the 9, when they are well under 2% of the American population. And she is vehemently in favour of laws banning freedom of speech in association with her mate, tax the conspiracy theorist Sunstein. It is an elephant in the living room, and we need to address it if we are going to unravel this cabal, because they don't want to frighten us into not going here for any other reason than they know if we go here, so much is going to unravel. Home straight to tyranny. They think they're on the home straight to tyranny. Wishful thinking. This is the man, by the way, David Axelrod, Rothschild Zionist, who orchestrates the words on this guy's teleprompter. He's so welded to it that on St. Patrick's Day, he had a reception for the Irish Prime Minister, and he thanked himself for asking everyone, inviting everyone, because the Irish Prime Minister's autocue words were still on there when Barmer came forward to thank everybody. So that's how much he's welded to it. Assuming levels of knowledge that isn't there. You know, people say Obama's intelligent. He's not. What they're doing is comparing him with Bush. And slow horses look fast when they're running past trees. We have the secret agenda unfolding, and this is the movie. Bush is in the movie, now Obama's in the movie, but it's the same movie. And he's just there to change and Pied Piper the people, although his honeymoon period was encouragingly short. He's another Tony Blair. Will you lie first, Tony, or shall I? Oh, after you, Barack. Tony Blair. If there's ever a half-truth in a Blair speech, it's a typing error. The big change man. Biggest contributors came from Wall Street, Goldman Sachs. His background is full of sleazy businessmen like Tony Rezko, who went to prison for fraud, who was a major funder of his political career. Why? Because he's one of the gang. Controlled by Soros, controlled by Brzezinski. Brzezinski's interesting. Brzezinski has been, like I say, his mentor since the 1980s. And this is what Brzezinski said in a book in 1970. The technotronic era, that which we're in now, involves the gradual appearance of a more controlled society. Such a society would be dominated by an elite unrestrained by traditional values. Soon it will be possible to assert almost continuous surveillance on every citizen to maintain up-to-date complete files containing even the most personal information about the citizen. These files will be subject to instantaneous retrieval by the authorities. This is the man who massively is behind Mr. Change, and he was also the co-founder, co-creator of an organisation called the Trilateral Commission, which locks into this network, which I've been writing about for years, a network around a secret society in Britain called the Round Table, including the Bilderberg Group, the Club of Rome, their environmental manipulation arm, and the Trilateral Commission as well. And interestingly, this is very relevant to current events. In his books and his statements, Brzezinski, who's very much, like I say, running the foreign policy of Obama with people like Kissinger, he talks about an area of the world called Eurasia, which is basically from Europe across to China. Now, this is the most significant part of Eurasia on this map. What Brzezinski says, control Eurasia, you control the world, not least because of the massive oil and gas reserves around the Caspian Sea. So we're in a process of the cabal wanting to take over Eurasia, and particularly this area. Now look, the number of countries that have been invaded, had regime change, or are now currently being targeted. First of all, the Ukraine. They use things to get the people going, like a colour revolution or a flower revolution. So this was the Orange Revolution. It was funded and orchestrated by the networks of George Soros, and it put their man in there. They had the Rose Revolution in Georgia, where they put their guy in there. They tried to get a green revolution after the last election in Iran, but it didn't stick. They have Iraq, they've taken that over. If they take Syria, then they're all the way through to Israel. They're in Afghanistan. They're now undermining Pakistan and bombing Pakistan more and more. In Kyrgyzstan, we had the Tulip Revolution. We just had another one recently, putting their people into power. We've had the terrorism starting to unfold in India, and they are targeting these areas because they not only want to take it over, they want to trigger a war involving China and Russia. The Third World War that their documents have talked about for a long time. And they're ticking them off. And if you take that map of Eurasia and keep it in your pocket, you'll tick them off as the news stories unfold. Oh, a revolution here. Oh, a coup here. And what they're doing, this is not America doing this. This is not America doing this. This is the cabal doing this through America. The idea is to destroy America, to use America to destroy America. Why? Because when you want a world government dictatorship, you cannot have any superpowers that have the military and financial might to say no to what you're saying must happen. Because the world government intends to have a world army, a world central bank, and a world currency, eventually. And they'll manipulate the financial situation to bring that about, or try to. So what they need to do to take the superpower America out is they need to destroy it militarily, and they need to destroy it financially. And that's what they're doing. They're using it on their foreign excursions, and they're undermining its economy to destroy America. And it is going down the pan so fast. And this guy is being used as the front man. Nice smile. Oh, he's a nice man. That's what's really happening. Behind the smile. Just hand it on. It wasn't change. There we go. Here's the ball. Make sure you keep the drugs running in Afghanistan, you know. Drop some my way. And what we saw was a presidential problem reaction solution. Bush was brought in to create problems, financial problems, overseas wars problems, and this guy was brought in as the solution to the problems. And as Adolf Hitler said, the great masses of the people will more easily fall victims to the big lie than the small one. So, I am someone to believe in. Hope, which is always in the future, never in the now. And so it never actually comes to fruition, but we can hope it does. And then you had change you can believe in. And none of these trite phrases like change were ever described in detail about what they actually meant. And what they created was a massive mind control coup on vast tracts of American people, because they made Obama a blank screen, an empty suit on which people could project what they felt hope and change was, their version of it, onto him. And once he became president, of course, everything was changed. Make the lie big, make it simple, keep saying it, and eventually they will believe it. I love you, you love me, I will get you stuff for free. Oh, yay, Obama, you're such a star. I love this one. The wolf found that shepherd's clothing worked better. The peace president, first thing he did was agree the bombing of Pakistan. Same guy, all this going on with this spent uranium, depleted uranium. What does he do? Continues the bombing, increases the troops. Fraud, another puppet. Golden rule, big time. Ignore the words and watch the actions, because they're never the same. And just to show you nothing's changed, there we go. Good old Bono. Nothing's changed, we're fine. So, we have this projected agenda, and we're now at the point where they're trying to introduce finally that structure. World government, world central bank, world army, world currency eventually, and alongside it, of course, the Orwellian state that I've been writing about for the best part of 20 years, and increasingly so many others have too over the years, and it's unfolding as daily experience. More and more control. Now, number plate imagery, where they can follow people all over the country. This stuff called Speed Spike, where they can follow cars and their speeds from satellite wherever they go over vast distances. Then they've got this stuff they're bringing in, problem, reaction, solution, because some puppet stooge kid set his pants on fire and now we must have this stuff. You know, I don't care about them seeing my body, serves them right, but it's going to bathe us all in bloody radiation. And of course, people who do care about their body being seen, it's going to, again, break them down. This is what it's about. It's a psychological warfare on the people. We're seeing police becoming more like soldiers. There are some good policemen, there are some sensible policemen, but my God, there's some morons. And they're giving them tasers as well. Bloody hell, 55,000 volts. And what is that about? People say, oh, it's terrible, it's bad for them, isn't it, that these people are dying from being hit by the taser? No, it's what they want. Because when people die of being hit by the taser, that means anything you say, officer, I'll do. It's what they want. It's part of the control system. And the sound to clear, peaceful protest, the microchip agenda goes on. One hospital now is replacing written tags on babies with barcoded ones. In the papers this week, it's all on the road. They now have barcodes that actually you can't see. The real ones, they would be there, but you wouldn't see them. Then there's the assault on the body computer to destabilize our ability to maximize our potential and get out there to higher levels of consciousness. That's what, in part, this is about. The chemtrails that crisscross the skies all over the world. All the chemical cocktails in food and drink, targeting children most of all. And this is an interesting thing. It's talking about problem, reaction, solution. The symptoms of the E numbers in sweets and food and everything, in terms of childhood behaviour problems, mirror the alleged symptoms of attention deficit disorder. Mirror them. Why? Because they're causing them. And so what they do is have this shite. This will chemically imbalance the brain. It will create behaviour problems and attention problems, and then we'll give you fricking Ritalin to dose you in mind-changing drugs to meet the problem that we are causing here. Same with genetically modified food, which is there to genetically modify us. This is why they're more and more targeting organic farmers around the world and people growing their own food to overcome the chemical shite. This is why they're targeting small farmers, so the great conglomerations can move in, like Monsanto and others. This is why they have this Codex Alimentarius, which was created by Nazis like Fritz Tamir, who came up with the work makes free sign across the entrance to Auschwitz. Him and some of his fellow Nazis who went to jail after Nuremberg. He was released well ahead of the end of his sentence because his mate intervened, called Nelson Rockefeller, 4 times mayor of New York. And they created these Nazis, Codex Alimentarius in the 60s, means code, food book or food code, and now they're trying to impose global regulations which in effect will stop us getting the doses of food supplements and vitamins that make any difference, and also hand control over to the pharmaceutical cartel for it. Same with the attempt to get us vaccinated with all this shite through the Rothschild created and controlled World Health Organization. And because of the web, this centre point can control the Monsantos, the food producers, the food standards agencies, which are supposed to oversee those people, the drug companies, the Food and Drug Administration in America is supposed to oversee them. They can orchestrate all of the stuff that I've just described and listed because of this web. And the overall thing is a war on the human immune system. They're trying to undermine the human immune system in every way, shape or form because they want a massive cull of the world population because they cannot cope with the numbers. And like I say, I was reading, when I was researching the book, I saw incredible figures. But my goodness, in the last week, I've seen extraordinary figures in terms of the increase in drugs, mind-altering drugs given to children. It is fantastic. And it's being done systematically to dumb down young people and stop them expressing their true potential for consciousness, which they are. And all that is in here, how that was going to happen, written as a novel by this guy, Fabian Aldous Huxley. They're putting us in a vibrational prison in all these ways. The financial crash was orchestrated on purpose by deregulating, and it's possible to do that because the Rothschilds and their associated families and groups control the world financial system. They're moving trillions of dollars around, so they decide if the stock market goes up or it goes down. If they target the dollar, it will go down. If they target sterling, it will go down or whatever, because they have that ability, and Goldman Sachs is one of their main vehicles for all this stuff. And they can control the world financial system because, once again, they control the banks, they control the Federal Reserve System in America, they control the Bank of England, and they control governments, and they control the reporting of it. And this is the plan. Stage 1, crash the global economy, September 2008. Stage 2, governments throw fantastic amounts of money, credit, money that doesn't exist, but we pay interest on it, at the perpetrators until their financial barrels are empty. Stage 3, and they'll bring this when they feel it's going to have maximum impact, they're going to crash the economy again on an unprecedented scale when governments have no means to respond. That's the idea. Why? Well, the last section will kind of pull all this together, because there's something going on which they want to stop. But that's the idea. The more fear, the more disruption, the more stress, the more worry that they can create, the more it impacts upon us in ways that suit the control system, as I've described through the day. And then there's this major element of their plan in the next few years, is introduce massive taxation and control and imposition as a result of something that doesn't exist, thanks to this guy. If this guy's involved, it's a scam. End of story. End of story. There you go. Thanks for the Oscar, but I'm totally full of crap. This man's going around demonizing carbon dioxide, which without it the world would not be as it is, and demonizing the greenhouse effect, without which we wouldn't bloody be here. There you go. That's what he's doing. And he's orchestrating all these people. And it's so kind that David de Rothschild has produced this book to help us, Global Warming Survival Handbook. Survival. Now, let's get some sanity into this. This is a graph of greenhouse gases that make up the greenhouse effect. That one, you would think from the propaganda, would be carbon dioxide. It is water vapor and clouds. I think we ought to ban water vapor and clouds. It's the only way to save the frickin' world, right? Every time we see a cloud, they ought to add VAT. I think it's the only bloody way. And this is carbon dioxide. Not only that, the grey stuff is natural, only the green slither is coming from human activity. And we're supposed to believe it's affecting the weather. It's the bloody sun. It's the bloody sun. When the sun is in an active phase, it gets warmer. When it's in a non-active phase, it gets cooler, which is why over the last 10, 11 years, when the sun's been in a non-active phase, it's got cooler year on year. And one of these groups in this network with Brzezinski's Trilateral Commission is the Club of Rome. It was created in the 60s to orchestrate the use of the environment to push the agenda. Aurelio Pecci, the founder of the Club of Rome, quoted it in their own publication in 1991. In searching for a new enemy to unite us, we came up with the idea that pollution, the threat of global warming, water shortages, famine and the like would fit the bill. And they've played it out ever since through the Church of Climatology, which is just a cult. And here's the high priest. And we have this guy, Nick Clegg, who actually calls people that challenge the global warming climate change official story as climate change deniers. Because the Church of Climatology says that if you don't accept its nonsense, you are a blasphemer! And they equate you with Holocaust deniers. That's what that line is supposed to do. And we're still pushing along. We've had Climate Gate, we've had Glacier Gate, we've had Amazon Gate, we've had Polar Bear Gate, Rising Sea Levels Gate, where all these things that were supposed to be happening have found to be not happening and have been lied about and manufactured. And we've even had Cowgate. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I bring you glad tidings and great news. These clowns have now admitted that bovine flatulence is not a threat to human existence as we know it. I can't tell you how happy I am. BBC, through gritted teeth, has had to admit on its website, but not on its television station, that temperatures have been falling. And yet, no matter, the Green Team goes in, Gore's team is taken on by Obama. They go around programming children about fear of the future. The Green Police to impose checks on your houses without your permission. And just to show it's a scam, there we go. How's that? Good stuff. Again, I keep coming back to this. The suppression vibrationally of this energy field and the human energy field. The reason they're stopping the manufacturing of light bulbs and the selling of light bulbs as we've known them up to this point, and they're replacing them with these things which are full of mercury and an environmental bloody disaster, is because they give off a certain vibration that affects the human energy field. This is why many people around the world get ill, physically ill, when they live with these light bulbs. It's all a scam. Very quickly to finish, political correctness. This is not about protecting minorities. It's about stopping people speaking their truth and having freedom of speech. That's what it's about. It's about creating what Orwell called newspeak, where the language replaces old speak, words that have meaning and detail and you can express yourself, with newspeak, which actually says nothing, has no ability to express detail. Because of the way it works. The only language in the world whose vocabulary gets smaller every year, Orwell said. And as he pointed out quite rightly, on the conscious level, we think in words. And so the more you reduce the words, and all this tech stuff, you are, and all this stuff, and the way we're changing the language and reducing it dramatically, is taking out over a periods, the ability to even think in detail. As one person said, how can you talk about freedom and how we must have freedom if there's no word left that really means freedom? And in 1984, of course, newspeak didn't have a word meaning freedom. This is what political correctness is about, shutting people up so no one can say anything. You mustn't upset anybody. Well, it upsets me. You've upset me by saying I can't upset anybody. If I can't upset anybody, I can't say anything. It don't matter what you bloody say, you'll upset somebody. And then we have health and safety. Again, it's to create a situation where people can't move. I went into a Pizza Hut on the Isle of Wight. I'm not proud of it, I was hungry. And I asked for a cup of coffee. And they said they couldn't make me a cup of coffee because the coffee machine was broken. I said, can't you, true story, I said, can't you put the kettle on? They said, no, we can't use a kettle because of health and safety. It's a bloody cafe. Do not hold the wrong end of a chainsaw. Oh, thanks for that, mate. I might have made a mistake there. And what all this is brilliantly portrayed here by Neil Haig. All these things, taxation, you can't do this, you can't do that, don't say that, health and safety, political correctness, oh, watch what you're thinking, oh, watch what you say, oh my God, is to tie us like flies in the spider's web so we can't move. We've got people worrying now about, is me wheelie bin out on the wrong day? Is it a few inches too near the curb? And you know something, and this is important. These people are taking the piss, and I'll tell you why. They are throwing this crap at us, and if they don't meet significant resistance, they go, okay, we'll throw even more crap. I'll get into this in the last section, but we need to draw a bloody line here. Not only say here and no bloody further, but we're going here and drawing it. Because otherwise they'll just keep doing it. And this is the key to all of this that I'm talking about. It is a mind game. It has to be. It has to be, because from mind comes everything. This massive stop, go here, don't do this, you can't do that, all this stuff. More and more fine detail of our lives being dictated. It's to turn us into the version of this. You put a mouse in a laboratory maze and you put shock equipment down different channels. When it goes down those channels, it gets a shock, it comes back. It might go down another time, it'll get a shock and come back. After a while, not long, you can take that shock equipment away, that mouse will never go down there again because you've changed its behavior patterns. And what they're doing is throwing all this stuff at us, giving us punishments for doing this, punishments for doing that, punishments for doing this, but you're okay as long as you do this. And that channel of it's okay if you do this is getting narrower and narrower and narrower. And what they want to do is to bombard us and batter us into acquiescence, so we become subservient totally to the system. Never challenge it. Just stay in this narrow band of robotic computer terminal perception. To turn this into this. A bar-coded computer terminal, unquestioning, acquiescent robot. And they've done it before in smaller groups. This is China. This is waiting for work in the factory in China. And China is in so many ways a blueprint of the global society they want. 1.5 billion people in China. They're controlled by a relative handful because the 1.5 billion are acquiescent, and therefore they cannot use their numbers to overturn the dictatorship of the few, because they're programmed not to. The rabbit hole goes very deep, even deeper than I've got to now. The journey continues. But it's to control perception and get us to believe we have no power. We bloody do. To get us to believe that we should just follow the one in front, because that's what everyone else does. Like bloody hell we will. And in 10 minutes I'll come back and let's look at what we can do. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. I've changed my smelly shirt for, I think, a very appropriate colour for this last section, actually. Smelt like a wrestler's jockstrap out there, I tell you. Okay, so where now? Well, this section is about the control system coming down. Because we're in a period where a dramatic shift in human awareness and human consciousness is in the process of taking shape. Some people call it the shift, sometimes I call it the vibrational quickening, but what I've been calling it for 20 years, because I came across this in the very earliest days after I met that psychic, that first psychic, I called it the truth vibrations. The first book I ever wrote after that awakening started, because it's ongoing, was called Truth Vibrations, or the Truth Vibrations, because I came across this awareness. There seemed no evidence at the time, my goodness, that there was a vibrational change in the process of coming. I understand it more now, mind, and we'll get into it, but I had no idea then. And what it was going to do was act like a spiritual alarm clock, and it was going to wake people up. It was going to wake people up from this slumber, this coma that we've been in for so long. And also, my goodness me, as this truth proved to be true 20 years on, that it was going to bring to the surface all that had remained hidden. That the truth was not only coming out, it couldn't be stopped from coming out because this vibrational change was bringing it to the surface. Like I say, 20 years ago, awakening, new consciousness, what? Truth coming out? Oh, you must be joking. 20 years on, my goodness, look at it. I'm fortunate to travel the world speaking, and I'm being invited to more and more countries you never think you're being invited to. And so I can see that this is not just happening in Britain, not just happening in America. It's happening all over the world. And all the differences is those that are staying in mind for now, and those who are opening mind to this change and perceiving self and the world in a completely different way. So I've been saying through the day, there's a base vibrational construct, the base vibration of this virtual reality coming out of the black holes, which triggers, as it goes through its cycle, which appears in the play-out world as like a time loop, it triggers different information coming from the suns. And we decode that information, and as it changes, so the information changes, and so therefore the epoch changes, the yuga changes. And we're now at this cusp where we're going from one epoch, one vibrational information epoch, into another one. And this new one is dramatically more expansive, dramatically more enlightened in the level of awareness that we are going to have access to. And the control system, which is a manifestation of this epoch, cannot survive this epoch, and that's why it's doomed. And we're now in the cusp of that change from one kind of world experience into another one. It's just another stage on the circuit of experience. And so, while for a few years yet, it's not going to seem like the control system's going down, because it's going to be throwing everything at us, because it's going to be desperate, there is no way that our children, young people and grandchildren are going to live out their lives, as appears to be the case now, in an Orwellian fascist global state. No way. This changing epoch, changing information, is starting to be activated within the Earth grid and, of course, within the human grid. This new information is starting, for those that open themselves to it, instead of stay closed in density, because if you stay in a dense state, then these higher vibration energies are not going to impact like you if you open yourself to them and connect with them. But those that are awakening, this new photon information, this more expanded perception, we're starting to integrate it, and we're starting to get insights from it, because it contains information that hasn't been around in this period we've been through. Now it is, and suddenly it's like, Oh, I see it now. Oh, I get it now. Why didn't I get it before? Because you're now decoding a totally different level of information that's becoming available, and it's encouraging us, it's pressing us, it's urging us to open to all that is and change the way we perceive the world. What certainly is true is some strange things are happening in the sun. The sun goes through cycles of less activity and more activity, the so-called sunspot cycle, which also produces the solar flares and all that business. And it's kind of quite a predictable cycle of some 11 years, and it goes into a down period and then another one starts. But what's happening now is that the down period has been bewildering scientists, because the new period, the new sunspot cycle of activity, which will push temperatures up a bit, and these bloody global warmers will go orgasmic when it does, is not becoming active. There is no one, this is something I read in a scientific magazine, there is no one alive today, or nearly alive today, who has experienced a down state of sunspot activity of the kind that we've been through in the last few years. This is why temperatures have been falling. This one is the so-called near solar minimum in January 2005 of sunspot activity, and this was the sun yesterday in terms of sunspot activity. Something's changing, and other things about the sun are not reacting as they normally would. But I suspect that when it starts again, and it will, we're going to see some dramatic activity in the sun. And that will impact upon not just the Earth's energy field, it will impact on our consciousness, our awareness, and things will start to speed up. Because this new information construct coming out of the sun is symbolized by Neil Haig and myself as a lion. As the real human being, I symbolize as a lion also. And basically, these truth vibrations are going to dramatically, as we go through these next few years, dramatically affect human perception, human awareness, and human potential as this new information becomes decoded and the awareness potential expands and we access a greater part of all possibility. Another thing these truth vibrations are going to do and are doing is to break that wall, that line of troops on the left brain, and we're going to be accessing more and more of our right brain potential. So our creativity, our insight, our ability for what people would call genius today, it's the natural human state, is going to more and more expand. We're heading in for an incredible time. It might not seem like it like for a few years, like I say, because these people will be battening down the hatches and trying to do everything they can to stop it, but that is what awaits us. In many ways, I wish I wasn't 58. I wish I was like 28, because I'd like to live through a bit more of this. But I'll have had me fill by the time I'm done, which is bloody well not yet, I'll tell you. So when so as we are impacted by these truth vibrations, because we open ourselves to them, then we break out of these boxes. And these are the people who are not being touched by that yet, but my goodness me, I'm seeing people now change dramatically in no time. I was walking through where I was speaking in Santa Fe last year, and this guy walks past me. He'd flown in from Austin, Texas, and he said, 3 months ago, mate, I thought you were mad. Words to that effect. He said, now I get it. And he got it so quick, and we're going to see this happening. People changing dramatically, and also, as I understood 20 years ago, that all that's been hidden, the curtain is being pulled back. And we're in for some shocks. I mean, of course, what we've talked about today is shocking to most people who have seen the world in another way, but the shocks are going to go on, because what's been going on in this world behind the scenes is nothing like what we think it is. And these truth vibrations, this energetic change, this new epoch of enlightenment and expansion, and people call love and harmony and respect, connection, is going into these dark places, these structures that are held together by low vibrational density. and breaking them up. Not, like a war. It's a new epoch coming. And as the new epoch comes, the energetic change is going to break up the denser structure of society and belief. And like I say, if these guys think, as they do, because they're accessing here, not here, because of their mental and emotional state, that it's a done deal, well, they're in for a bit of a shock. Because, when you've got a dam of water, it can take a long, long time before the cracks appear. But from the cracks appearing to collapse can be a very, very short time. And already, if you look from this perspective, the cracks are appearing. And the first crack is when people say, I've had a freaking belly full of this. I ain't taking this anymore. Then the cracks start to appear. And what we're going to see in the next 10 years is this control system, increasingly as the years pass and these truth vibrations get more powerful, we're going to see this control system come down because a new awareness is being breathed into this reality, and a control system based on suppression of awareness therefore cannot survive that change. Now, another perspective on why the control system is going crazy now. As I say, they can see down what we call a timeline further than we can when we're in this reality, because they're in another reality looking in. So they could see, they don't know the scale of it because they can't get out here where it's being orchestrated from, and they can get here. But they can get a feeling, and they have had an awareness that this energetic change was coming and how it could potentially affect the slaves in terms of waking them up. It is absolutely no coincidence whatsoever that it is now, of all times, in this experience within this reality, when these truth vibrations are manifesting themselves and quite demonstrably changing the way people perceive self in the world, that this control system is at its peak in trying to suppress humanity, control humanity. It's absolutely in sync, because this moon matrix can only influence human perception if humans stay within its vibrational frequency, within its hack. The truth vibrations are taking us out of that frequency range, and therefore it's losing its influence on awakening people by the day as we start to perceive and see and become aware of things that we weren't before when we were connected to the hack. And all these things, destabilizing us chemically through food and drink, rewiring the body genetically through genetically modified food, what they're doing to the kids, the drugs, mobile phones, and all this microwave soup that we now live in, microchips especially, they're all designed to externally suppress or internally suppress, in terms of food, etc., the human body computer to stop it accessing these truth vibrations. It seems to be, on the face of it, that they're trying to grab more and more control. The truth is, it is a desperate, desperate attempt to hold on to the control they've had thus far. That's what it's about. It's battening down the hatches to stop the control system coming down. In part because it has many expressions, including creating earthquakes and dramatic extremes of weather. This technology known as HAARP in Alaska, and it's now got other organizations connected to it and technology connected to it increasingly around the world, it bounces radio waves off the ionosphere, the highest part of the atmosphere, and back to Earth. And what it is in major part is a underpinning, a supporting role to this moon matrix to create a low vibrational atmosphere in the lower atmosphere where we live in and operate in like this. Again, it's targeting this morphic field, as the Satanists call it, and some others do too, to keep it in a low vibrational state. It's fighting the truth vibrations. They know what they're doing, on one level anyway. And one of the other things that HAARP can do, and it's in the patents of the technology, it can send out radio waves carrying information, thoughts, on the wavelength of human brain waves, and it can impose those thoughts on the brain, which we then manifest through as our own thinking. That's also part of this, and it's also part of this defense mechanism against this epoch change. And if they change and affect this energy field we live in, we will be affected by it if we stay in density and closed mind state. I'm absolutely convinced, have been for years, that part of the creation of this like sub-reality underpinning, supporting the moon matrix, which was okay up to this point, didn't need anything else. But now this energetic change is taking place. They're bringing the troops in, if you like, to underpin it. And I'm convinced that part of the chemtrails, which kind of pollute our skies and stuff and contain metals and barium and aluminium and all this stuff, is part of creating this sub-reality. What the truth vibrations are doing is healing this schism. It's part of what it's doing. And the schism has been this distortion in the metaphysical universe, the waveform information construct, has been playing out into the holographic play-out world for, what would you call it? Eons, for as long as we can remember. And it has manifested itself out as conflict and fractured personalities and all the rest of it. This is being healed all the time as these truth vibrations impact themselves and we move into this new epoch. And those that are tuning into it, it's healing these divisions. And when this changes, this must change. And the control system is a play-out holographic expression of the schism. So when the schism heals, as it's going to, this distortion, its outward holographic expression, the control system, must fall. That's why it's doomed. It cannot survive this energetic change because it is a manifestation of the distortion that is now being healed. The pieces are being put back in that have been taken out. A totally new era is in the process of moving into human experience, and this control system, it's doomed, and all its expressions are doomed. Not doomed like, let's have a mass bloody murder, mass killing, all the rest of it. Doomed in this reality because they're connected to something that's disappearing. There'll still be infinite consciousness, even those in the control system. They'll remember who they are eventually. It might take some time, and we'll be having a beer with them one day thinking, do you remember when you were stupid? Oh, yeah, I remember that. Oh, God, mate, yeah. Oh, that's what we'll be doing at some point. So this epoch change is moving from a sense of division, left brain, where it sees everything as apart from everything else, sees everything in terms of structure and apartness. We're moving from that perception as this energetic construct changes to a perception of what comes from expanded consciousness and awareness, which is we're all one. We're all expressions of the same one consciousness, which again makes racism ridiculous, ludicrous, insane, the height of ignorance. And as the schism, the distortion is healed, so other expressions of the distortion will become what we call history. The police state, the energetic wars, once we're really in to this expanded awareness, the very idea of going to war. We have laws because of the distortion, because of the epoch we've been going through. We don't need laws in the state of awareness that we're going into, and our children and grandchildren will go even more into. You don't need to say we have a law against murder when murdering someone would never even enter your psyche. You don't need environmental protection laws when harming the planet because you know the planet and you are one anyway would never occur to you. You don't need these things. Laws are there to suppress overwhelmingly, but also expressions of laws are to try to mitigate for the distortion that manifests itself in distorted behavior. The idea of anyone going hungry in a world of plenty in the epoch we're entering, we'll never even conceive it. You mean they used to let people starve? That's this mentality that we're moving out of. And we're at the cusp now of this change, which is a very interesting place to be. We're going back to that. We're going back to being connected to what we really are. And of course 2012 is much talked about and will be more talked about as we get closer to it. I have a different view on that. You know, I should be saying, given I've been writing about these truth vibrations for 20 years, I should be saying, see, 2012 told you, yeah. No, I'm not saying that actually. I think 2012 is a diversion. By 2012, yes, things will have moved on. Things will be changing. Amazing things will be taking place. There'll be big challenges, and there'll also be big, wonderful things starting to manifest by 2012 compared with now. But there'll be more so in 2013, more so in 2014, more so in 2015. This is an ongoing process as we move through the cusp out of one era, epoch, energetically, information, into another one. And so by the time it reaches where it's the natural state and the old epoch has gone altogether, you know, it's going to be down the road. But every year, every month, things are going to be moving on energetically. And there'll be things in 2012, and maybe a very good chance that manufactured things will happen in 2012 to focus attention as part of the diversion of the control system. It's quite possible that that will happen. But I don't see 2012 as some epoch-changing year. But there comes a point, and I don't think it's too far away at all, where the tipping point comes in this energetic change, where the irresistible force, which is the truth vibrations, then start to become the dominating state of awareness and perception in this reality. And then we're really moving. And I don't see that as too far away. Like I say, it takes a long time for a dam to crack, but not from then to it collapsing. So we're actually living in like a river of energy that's getting faster and faster in terms of its vibration, the quickening. And what we can do is we can get on the airbed or the canoe and we can go, whoa, what a ride, this is great, that's fantastic. Or we can stand there and try to hold on to the world as it was, in which case we're going to be expending more and more energy trying to hold our status quo, and eventually we won't be able to hold it, and we'll get, symbolically anyway, washed away. And as these truth vibrations manifest themselves and our awareness starts to expand, we're going to be accessing levels of realities that have been denied us up to this point. People talk about the sixth sense. That's nothing compared with what people are going to have as we move into this new era. It's going to be extraordinary. We're going to remember the fantastic people and potential that humans once were, when they were aware of who they were, and the world in our heads, in other words, the world we experience, is going to dramatically change. We're heading for a new dawn. Now, this is a phrase the control system uses for their new era, a new dawn, a new day. Well, it is a new dawn and a new day, but ain't the one they think's coming. We've been through this process in the last epoch, and now we're going back the other way. And as a result, this control system must fall, and we are emerging from the abyss, the suppression, and all the rest of it to be who we really are. And that must change everything. Einstein said, you cannot solve problems with the same level of consciousness that created them. That is very good news, because what we've been doing through this epoch is creating problems with a certain level of consciousness, mind, and then bringing people in to solve the problems with mind and creating more problems. Now we're in this change where we're expanding consciousness, expanding awareness, and suddenly that cycle of problem and more problem, and it's unsolvable, there's no way out of this. Suddenly it's a piece of cake. Look, it's so simple. Fantastic time we're going into, but the next few years are going to be challenging. It's breaking the spell that the moon matrix and its supporting technologies and manipulations has had on the human mind. You know, we don't have to find enlightenment. We are enlightened. What we need to do is remove the barriers of belief and perception that we've thrown around ourselves that keep us from that enlightenment. That enlightenment's never gone away. It's over here. It's saying, I'm over here. I'm over here. And this is what a major role the truth vibrations are doing, because they're the quickening. They're breaking up these dense energy fields, and as they do, suddenly we're connecting with levels of awareness that we didn't realize. We've been in a trance all this time, programming perception because of that. And it connects through the reptilian brain. So let's disconnect from the reptilian brain as part of breaking the spell. It feeds us fear, it has to, constantly. Fear this, fear that. Insecurity, anxiety, that's what it's doing to manipulate our perception and hold us in a low vibrational state, therefore the moon matrix. So one of the ways that we can, just on a daily basis, is disconnect from the lizard brain, and therefore what it's connecting us to, is to, simple thing, don't count to 10, count to 50. And if you're still wound up and about to hit somebody, count another 50. Because what the reptilian brain does is it doesn't think, it reacts. That's why it's so fast. It doesn't have to think, just reacts. Now, the other parts of the brain, like the neocortex, they think things through, so it takes longer than the reptilian brain. This is why we react to something, reptilian brain, and then maybe a minute later, 2 minutes later, maybe half an hour later, the visual cortex has thought this through, and we go, oh my God, I overreacted, didn't I? Did I really say that? Oh my God. That's what, it's the reaction system, reaction. And if we can stop reacting, emotional reaction and all that stuff, because, you know, we're manipulated so much through the reptilian brain reaction system. It's not problem, think it through, do a bit of research, see what you think, discuss it a bit, solution. It's problem, reaction, solution. That whole process of mass manipulation is done through here. So when we're faced with a situation, and I'm talking to myself as much as anybody here, you know, I'm not cross-legged on a mountain saying, hey, here I am. No, I'm talking to myself as much as anyone else. When we're faced with these reaction systems, whether it's because of a world event, whether it's because something in our lives, if we can just go, okay, I don't like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and eventually the reptilian brain loses its power because it's a reaction power, and once the reaction's gone, it's lost its power, and we can think things through. And if we stop reacting through the reptilian brain, then we are massively disconnecting from the moon matrix. And as these truth vibrations change the nature of this energetic control of the human collective mind, the hive mind that we've been connected to, then its expression, this structured world, the way we work. And, you know, my brother said to me once, what's it all about, Dave? He said, you get up in the morning, you go to work, you come home, you have your tea, you watch telly a bit, and you go to bed. You get up and you go to work. I mean, look at it. It's the way it is, the way it's structured. It's slavery because it's so limited. And I've talked to people once, the last time I spoke at the Oxford Union, I was talking to some students. They could not perceive a world in which there wasn't a hierarchical structure of government because there would be chaos. That's the left brain at work. And people, when you think, look, this world is crazy. It's not serving people. People are serving it. That's what we are. We're slaves to a system. Politicians are slaves to a system. They go into the system. They think they're going to change it. The system changes them. And therefore, we can't perceive left brain, old epoch, that actually there are other ways of living, of interacting, other ways of providing food and warmth and what you have, other ways of living life than this drudgery. But as we expand our awareness, then other ways of interacting will become very obvious to us. Blinded by belief, believe. This is one of the control system's greatest weapons to control the human psyche. Get them to believe something. They don't care if it's this religion or this political belief or whatever it is. As long as you believe something powerfully, then they got you. Because belief builds walls around itself, repels all borders that challenge that belief, and suddenly you're living your life on a postage stamp or a dot. and your true ability to perceive in an expanded way is gone. You've given it up to the belief. This is how it must be. And once you have a belief, like a religious belief, then there are rules and regulations. Walls go around the belief. If you're going to be one of us, you must believe this. You can't believe that because they believe that, so you'll be one of them if you believe that, and all the rest of it. Here we go. We're all possibility. What are we doing having rigid beliefs when we're all possibility? Religion is mind. And there are many expressions of religion, not just going to church. There are many religions of the mind of various kinds that don't appear to be, but they are. Addictions of the mind. It's mind. You must believe this. There is one possibility. What's that saying? There is one possibility. That's how mind thinks. Consciousness, there is one possibility. You're having a laugh, darling. So religion, as we know it, is not going to survive this epoch change either, because it's an expression of the last one. These are people in a hypnotist stage show who've been told that they are religious believers. There's so many religious believers who are like that. There's so many prisons of the mind, religious belief, racial belief. I'm in a different spacesuit to you, so I'm better than you are. It's like being two spacemen on the moon and they're having a bloody argument because the spacesuit is that colour and that spacesuit is that colour and that was made here and that was made there. Mine's superior to yours. It's childish, child's play. And by the way, it's not just white people who are racist. It's a mentality that can manifest through any race. And we have racism all over the world. It's not a racial belief, racism. It is a mental mind state. And anyone that thinks they're superior to anyone else because of their body computer state or colour or whatever is controlled completely by mind and ignorance, political belief, self-identity belief. I am Joe Public, I'm little me. All these things will go and have to go if we're going to open up to the truth vibrations, because they are all about limitation, all about little me. And as researchers have shown, when we have rigid beliefs, the brain fires off the neurons in a specific network. And what that does is filter reality, decode reality, in line with the way those neurons are firing. Therefore, it continually edits its reality and creates self-fulfilling prophecies, if you like, that it keeps seeing the world according to its belief. Despite receiving information that challenges the belief, it just filters that information in line to protect its belief. And then when you change your belief system, as has been shown in research, the neurons start firing in a different way, and you start seeing the world in a different way. If we can get to a point where we open our minds without belief, we come from a state of knowing, all-knowing consciousness rather than belief from mind, then we open up the range of perception and understanding and awareness well beyond anything you can access if your brain is firing off in this symbolic way, limited by rigid belief, whatever belief that may be. When we open our mind to consciousness, everything changes. And to do that, I would suggest we need a blank sheet of paper. You know, it's not about learning anything new. We're all knowing if we can access that level of ourselves. It's unlearning the programming that has kept us from that level of awareness that we truly are. And therefore, because we're dealing with all possibility at the core of our being, that's what we are, we need a blank sheet of paper. All preconceived idea needs to go. All preconceived belief needs to go. And let information, intuitive knowing, decide what we think about things and feel about things rather than preconceived idea. It's not possible becomes, well, let's see if it's possible on the basis of the evidence, the basis of the information, the basis of how I feel. And then suddenly we're not saying, no, that's possible, I'm going to shut that out by reflex action. We're going to look at it. And when you do look at it, as I know from experience, what seems to be crazy to start with starts to take on very profound dimensions. Because we're all possibility. And if we're saying only this is possible, only that's not possible, we're not operating at the core of our being, which is all possibility. We are editing things, we are limiting ourselves, we are entering the realm of mind. And it's a time to choose, in many ways, between the head, the intellect, not that he doesn't have the part to play, it does, it being the governor, and the heart, knowing, intuition. What changed my life more than anything else was 20 years ago when I decided that if I was ever had a decision between going with my intuitive knowing, which we feel here, funnily enough, in the kind of heart chakra area, and my mind, I was going to go with my head, I was going to go with my intuition. And it changed my life. And has allowed me to follow this path, because I can tell you over the last 20 years, there have been many times in the early days, not for a long time, but in the early days, when my head was going, you're going to say what? You're going to do what? You must be joking. And not in my lifetime. But I thought, no, I feel to do it. I went with it. And as a result, you follow this, this energetic path through intuitive knowing that's been laid out. And what happens, because intuition, knowing, is coming from another level of awareness beyond five-sense reality, it means that to five-sense reality, general world, some of the things you do when you follow your intuition are seen as, I think I'm possibly an example of this, are seen as crazy and mad and lunatic and dangerous and all that stuff. And what happens then when you do that and you get that reaction is that the head kicks in, the mind, which wants to protect its preeminence that it's had up to this point, puts its arms together and says, see what happens when you don't listen to me, see the trouble you've got into? And it's like, okay, and you come back into mind. But if you stick with it, and you take what comes as a result of expressing your uniqueness and expressing your intuitive knowing, then eventually things happen, good things, great things sometimes, that happen not despite what you did and the reaction you got, but because of it. And then the mind, the intellect, looks at this and says, well, hold on a second. It might get you into trouble, but eventually it works out. And what happens then is your head and your heart, your knowing, your intuition come together. And the war stops. We become whole again, where mind serves consciousness instead of serving itself. And it's years and years, I say this honestly, since my intuition and my head have had a problem. It's an incredible feeling, because it's like, when you start out, it's like, I feel to do this. You're not doing that. No. And then after a while, when this sync takes place, it's like, I feel to do this. And the head goes, okay. And it's a totally different way of interacting with the world. The war stops. And this is open to all of ours. But the first thing is what it is. It's to face the situation we're in, and then we can do something about it. First thing, to realize that up to this point, we have been slaves thinking we were free. And so the first stage is to acknowledge that, and when we do, we can do something about it because we're accepting what the situation is. The second thing is to choose freedom over slavery and be prepared to do what is necessary to achieve that freedom over slavery. And when we do that and we mean it, there is a shift in our energy field. As that shift takes place, what I call magnetic attraction, it's the energy field is of the human body is an expression vibrationally of our state of being, mentally, emotionally, what we might call spiritually. And therefore, our state goes out as a vibrational field, and it draws in other vibrational fields that sync with it. We call these people, places, locations, ways of life, jobs, opportunities, or lack of them. So when this shift takes place, because we've said my intent, very powerful intent, is that I want freedom, and I want to end my life. I'm not going to be a slave anymore. I'll do what is necessary to understand who am I, where am I. Suddenly this energy field shift takes place, and we start drawing in new people, places, locations, opportunities, etc., that are syncing with the new vibrational state as opposed to the old one. And at this point, and I experienced this big time in the public eye, we experience this shift as our lives falling apart. Partnerships may end. We may lose our job. We may change location. We may, like me, undergo massive ridicule. But what if we understand what's happening? The old energy field, the old you, the old intent, the old awareness was pulling in the old life. And then when it shifts, it's pulling in a very different expression of the new vibrational self. And that transitional period, when the shift takes place, the old life falls apart. But if you want to change your life, then the old life has to fall apart unless it serves the new one. So when we choose freedom, the transformation can be challenging. It's easier now because more and more people are going through it and we're beginning to understand the process. I felt like this so many times. I went to the top of a hill in the south of England, the west of England, one day because I didn't want to upset anybody. I went to the top of this hill in the middle of nowhere, and I screamed my frustration out. I know what this image means, and so many other people do. But it was the old life breaking down so the new one can take over. It's time to know thyself. Not thyself that we've been told we are, but thyself which we really are. This self, everything from the beginning, my birth, my ancestors, my children, my wife, everything comes together simultaneously. I saw everything about me, about everyone who was around me. I saw everything they were thinking now, what they thought then, what was happening before, what was happening now. There is no time, there is no sequence of events, no such thing as limitation of distance, of period of time, of place. I could be anywhere I wanted to simultaneously. That's who we are. And that's what the control system has tried to keep from us. Now, the way to go most powerfully with this change is to stop identifying who we are with what we are told we are, little me. To stop looking in the mirror and thinking that reflection is me, it's all I am. And looking at ourselves under the microscope, that's who I am. And bringing our point of observation from I am David Icke, a personality born in Leicester, England in 1952, to I am infinite consciousness, all that is, has been, and ever will be, can be, all possibility. Infinite love, having an experience through this lens into this reality that they call David Icke. And again, once we take this observation from that observation, there is a fantastic shift in our energy field. And we break up these densities that are holding us in mental and emotional servitude. Everything starts to change when we move our sense of self-identity. That's why the control system wants us in there. It can't cope with this. We have to be in there. Little me. And this is the fork in the road. Are we going to live our lives as consciousness or mind? As all there is or little me? Because that will decide the kind of world we're going to live in. Escaping the box, and it is a box, it's a vibrational box. Getting out of this thing called cognitive dissonance, where we lie to ourselves. Cognitive dissonance is, for people who haven't come across it, it's a very powerful controlling mechanism whereby we have a belief about self or the world or a situation, and we're sticking with it. And when we face information or experience which challenges the belief, then cognitive dissonance is that uneasy state when you see that your belief system is under threat from this information or this experience. If this is real, then the belief can't be. And what you do then is you go about these incredible stories we tell to ourselves to convince ourselves that this can't be true, to protect the belief system. Cognitive dissonance can be a good thing if that dissonance leads you to look at your belief in the light of this experience or this new information, and then move the belief in the light of that. Then cognitive dissonance is a good thing. What most people do is try to hold the belief system in the face of this. And there's no greater example than the Skeptics Society. You ever come across them, the Skeptics Society? Bloody hell, they are cognitive dissonance.com, they are. I tell you. I've debated with some of them on television programs and stuff, and one of them, his bum kept bouncing on the seat. He had what they call Vitus dance, is it? My mother used to call it, where you can't stop moving, because he was in such cognitive dissonance, because the information he was hearing was so at odds with his belief system, he was kind of going crazy. And so you get people who come up with these amazing bloody stories to try to explain away why something is not challenging their belief system. So again, part of that blank sheet of paper is letting cognitive dissonance serve us. I'm going to look at my belief system instead of holding on till our knuckles turn white. Also, trying to avoid looking at the truth, because if we don't, we ain't going to change anything. Go beyond being in denial of what is happening in our lives and in the world, and start looking at it as it really is. It is what it is, because unless we look at things in that light, instead of trying to find wishful thinking reasons why actually it's not really like that, we're not going to change anything, because we're going to be in denial that anything needs changing. It is what it is, and we need to face it. And it's important to stress this. This control system, this reptilian control system, and in all its facets, is not all powerful, and it's not omnipotent. It's actually bloody stupid. You know, there's such a difference between being clever and being wise. It's very clever to build an atomic bomb, but it's not wise to do so. There is a difference between the two. And these people are very clever, but they're stupid. And cleverness without wisdom is the most destructive force on earth, which is why that's what they are. They have only managed to control humanity because they put us in a smaller box than they're in. Because of their mental and emotional state, fear, wanting to control because of fear and all the rest of it, they are in a vibrational box. They can't access any higher levels of awareness because of their mental and emotional state that's holding them in density, and their fear. Their fear is being passed on to us through this collective mind. So the only way that they can manipulate and control us is by putting us in a smaller box than they're in, and that's what the suppression of knowledge and awareness and consciousness has been all about. But as we open ourselves to the true nature of ourselves, we can move well beyond any area that they can access. So just because they're technologically advanced intellectually, it doesn't mean they have power over us and they're omnipotent and all-powerful. They're not. They're desperate. Desperate because of the numbers of them to the numbers they're trying to control. And the other thing, I use this analogy a lot, is, like I said earlier, we don't have to find enlightenment. We just have to open our programming to the enlightenment we already are. And it's a testament to the magnificence of what we really are, that this control system has had to throw everything at us. Look at it. All these facets. The food additives, the electromagnetic pollution, the programming through the media, the suppression of education, the suppression of science, all this stuff. They have to throw at us to keep us in servitude. It's like, I use this analogy, if you want to put a ball floating on a tank in an unnatural state, which is where we've been, you have to push it down and you have to hold it there. Because its natural state is floating on the surface, you have to hold it there, because the moment you let it go, zoom, it's gone into its natural state. And symbolically, we've been held on the bottom of the tank by all this stuff that's thrown at us from cradle to grave. And the fact that it needs so much to hold us in this suppressed state shows the magnificence and genius that we really are, we once were and will be again. When I say we, I mean what we call humanity. So as the control system's ability to do that is unraveled, and this is happening, then we're going to go to the top of the tank again, not by finding enlightenment, but by removing that which is keeping us from it. Be afraid, big monsters coming. This is the big area that they control us with, and we need to let go. They're feeding of this fear. Like I say, 1.5 billion people in China controlled by a handful because of fear of challenging the handful. No more fear. I mean, this is such a symbolic picture. Here's all these bloody sheep, and here's 2 shepherds, and there's a guy at the back. Now, those sheep, symbolic of humanity, can only be controlled in this way because they acquiesce to the shepherds, and the sheepdog symbolizing fear. What if this group of sheep, instead of going ba, 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 and if they want to, oh, ruff, ruff, oh, fear, oh, following the one in front, the control system, the shepherd, yeah, oh, he's got the power, he's got a stick, aye. What if those sheep said, oh, look, I'm not following him anymore. And hey, Rover, woof, bloody woof, on your bike, you're not frightening me, okay? I'm over here. I'm over here. I'm over here. I'm going down here. I like that. There's some grass down here. Suddenly, this herd, flock, whatever you want to call it, is scattered because it's expressing its uniqueness and it is not fearing the consequences. These people, apparently all powerful, have no bloody power. None. They'd never find most of them. Don't mind catch them. And that's what humanity's like. We have the numbers. And yet, because we acquiesce through fear of challenging the control system, even though we have the numbers, the handful of people control the many. We have the power. We've chosen not to use it. It's about bloody time we did. God, the answers are there in front of our eyes. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results, Albert Einstein. Absolutely it is. So it's pretty certain that if things are going to change in terms of control and suppression and all this stuff, then we've got to stop doing the same thing over and over again, and that is acquiescing to the control system. We're all possibility. What are we doing? Thinking that we just do the same thing over and over again? That's one possibility. Let's express our uniqueness and respect each other's right to express our uniqueness. We're all possibility. Actually, one possibility is swimming against the tide. Let's try it. And let's respect each other's right to do that. We should be celebrating diversity. Diversity is an expression of all possibility. It's acquiescence and conformity that is an insult to all possibility. And yet that's what this system wants us to do, conform. And you know, at least sheep need a sheepdog to keep them in line. Humans have out-sheeped the sheep because we keep each other in line. We don't need the sheepdog. We have sheepdogs called parents and teachers and politicians and peer pressure. When we're thinking of expressing our uniqueness, we're not thinking, oh, what will George Bush think or what will Barack Obama think? No. We're thinking, what will my mother think? What will my father think? What will the neighbours think? What will my mates think? What will the people at work think? In other words, what will other people who have chosen to live in this sheep pen think of me getting out of it? It's like sitting in a cell and you find a way out through the door, and instead of another prison warder coming along to stop you getting out, the other prisoners jump on you. That's what we do. If we are going to be what we really can be, and we're going to respect our right to be different, we have to respect others' right to be different as well. Because when we respect other people's right to be different and express their uniqueness, then we're setting them free and we're helping to set society free. We are policing each other all the time through ridicule, through condemnation. We need to start being at peace with other people having different views and expressing different lifestyles than we do, even if we don't like it. This breaks up this sheep policing the sheep. There's only a few who in full knowledge are behind this control system, and they have to get the target population to police the target population. They don't have the numbers to do it themselves. I have a simple philosophy on life, so simple. Do what you like so long as you don't impose it on others. Dead simple. That's it. And I've heard people say to me, that would be anarchy. What about people murdering each other? Well, I think that murder could just about constitute imposing your will on another person. And when you think about that simple philosophy, it overrides all law, need for law. If we live that, we don't need laws that say don't murder when you wouldn't impose yourself on another person. But we can do this. You know, if Henry Kissinger wants to sacrifice George Bush, be my guest as long as you both agreed. Because when you leave the body, you'll feel right prats and you might learn something in your eternity. I get interested when they want to impose things on other people that don't want those things imposed upon them. That's what the control system's trying to do. That's why I'm interested. But express ourselves as long as we're all agreed. And we don't impose it on other people. We have this either or. Someone wants kind of a rave or something, and some people don't want to be affected by all the noise and disruption. And so we say, they can have it, they can't have it. It's either or. Any society that was conscious would say, okay, we can sort this out, okay? They don't want the noise, fair enough, understand that. They want to have a party, a rave, a good time. Okay, now, let's find a place where they can have what they want that don't disrupt anyone else's life. So they can have their experience that they want and no one else is affected. Everyone's a bloody winner. This is either or. Someone must win, so someone must lose, so someone could win. Old epoch consciousness. Winner, winner, win, win. That's the new consciousness. I stand upon my desk to remind myself that we must constantly look at things in a different way. You see, the world looks very different from up here. You don't believe me? Come and see for yourselves. And it does. When you move your point of observation, the world looks so different. When we break out of constantly scanning the world from a single point of observation so everything looks the same. From a higher point of observation, things look very, very different. And we can break out into infinite consciousness. Clear our minds. That's another thing, another layer on the onion. It doesn't matter. My goodness me, how we make things matter that don't matter. And it clutters up our mind, it clutters up our emotions, and holds us in low vibrational servitude. I have a thing I call the deathbed perception. You're lying on your deathbed, well, your body is, you're not, and you've got 10 minutes to live. Tell me, looking back at your life, what mattered. You know, in 2004, when that guy cut you up at the lights, and you got out your car and you screamed abuse, and he got out and wanted a fight, does that matter now? No. Then the trick is to make sure it doesn't matter then. To bring that mentality into everyday life. It doesn't matter. We get het up, angry, frustrated. We worry about things. People worry about going to the dentist. Then they go to the dentist and they go, oh, that was all right. What do you mean it was all right? You've been worried sick for 3 weeks. It's destroyed your life for 3 weeks. You tell me it's all right. It was no problem. It's bringing this. It does. What really matters? What really matters is loving each other, caring for each other, being kind to each other. What matters is expressing our true magnitude of infinite genius, not acquiescing to meaningless things that we take so bloody seriously. How many things do we look back that got us really het up, frustrated and angry, and we look back, it didn't really matter, did it? Well, don't let it matter then. That's the thing. And then there's what I've long called combing the mirror. Combing the mirror is a crazy thing, because what happens is you want to change your hair, so you comb the mirror. Funnily enough, your hair doesn't change. What you have to do is comb your hair, and then the mirror reflects it. And this so-called out there world is like the mirror. It's not even out there. It's a projection of in here. If we're going to change this apparently out there world, we have to change in here. It's like if this is a movie screen, and I don't like the movie, so I'm going to stand here and I'm going to hurl abuse at the movie screen. Nothing's going to change. I've got to go back to the projector and I've got to change the reel, and then this will change, because this is just an outplaying of that. And the Illuminati control system is delighted, indeed encourages us to believe that we can change the world, if you like, and our lives out there. They want us to comb the mirror because they know nothing's going to change. This is where things change, and we connect with this at what we call the subconscious mind. And it's in the subconscious mind that we interact with this waveform construct. The conscious mind experiences the play-out holographic world, the decoded world. So this is where we have to change things. Because by the time it hits this screen, this holographic decoded world, it's like the movie on the screen. It's a done deal. You ain't got to change that now. You ain't got to change this now. We have to change it before we decode it into experienced holographic reality. There are some people I've been reading, they say 98% of human decisions are made by the subconscious mind, the unconscious mind. I would go further. I'd say 100% of human decisions are made by the unconscious mind. What the conscious mind does is experience them. But the conscious mind can interact and work as one with the unconscious mind if it starts to understand the way reality works. How do we understand what's going on in the unconscious mind so therefore we can play a part in changing that? By what I call the language of life. The play-out holographic world of experience is a mirror of the information construct, in other words, our unconscious mind in many senses. And the way it plays out, the language of life, as I call it, tells us what's going on in the unconscious. And therefore, we can play a part together, unconscious and the whole of self, in changing and clearing out what is happening in the unconscious, which is playing out in the experienced conscious holographic world. For instance, do things keep recurring in our lives over and over and over again? You'll never guess, it's only happened again. Well, why is that happening to you over and over again and not happening to him at all? What is it within you that's manifesting this? What is it telling you? What is the language of life telling you by what you're now continually experiencing? Why don't things work in your life, but they work in this person's life? What is that telling you? What is it about you that's making it not work? What is it about them that's making it work? The language of life. And you can start to read this, and it's about taking responsibility and saying, oh God, I'm so unlucky, nothing ever happens to me. It's like taking responsibility, power. Why is this happening to me? What is it about me that means this is happening to me and not to them? It's the language of life. He's talking to us. For instance, one of the things that totally bloody controls human experience is a desire for outcomes. We're all possibility. If we live as all possibility, our true self, then we're flowing. We're flowing with life. We haven't got an outcome because we're all possibility. We flow where we want to go, and we flow where life takes us. Once you have an outcome, I want this, then you have pinned yourself to one possibility. And if that possibility doesn't happen, then you're in a state of disappointment. Even though you're all possibility and you can flow anywhere you like, I'm this what I want to be. And it's like a door. And people go through life and they're going, bang, bang, I want to be this. This is my outcome. Bang. And the door's going and life's going, ain't opening. Ain't opening. Bang, bang. Frustration. Anger. Why me? And it gets more, okay, now we're going to put this across the door. And they still go, bang, bang. This is my outcome. And then all the time this is going on, over here there's a door swinging open saying, hey, come through me, no problem. Oh no, I want to be this, bang. And we go through life and the door doesn't open and that one's saying, over here. But because we have an outcome, it means it controls our life. And like I said earlier, and suppresses our life. I don't have an outcome. I don't have an outcome. When I get up in the day, I don't have an outcome. I don't have an outcome in my life. I just go where it takes me. Outcomes are limitations, preconceived ideas. Now, intent is a very, very powerful force for change. This is my intent. That energy goes out there, and through what I call vibrational magnetism, it draws towards us what we need to do to achieve that intent. Not when there's an R in the month and every now and again, every time. So when we have this intent, I want to be truly free. I want to be the true magnitude of who I am. I want to know what's going on in the world. I want to understand this. What happens is that intent, if you mean it, it's not just words, otherwise it's no power at all, then that intent will start drawing to you people, places, experiences which let you achieve that intent. And often they are very challenging and your whole life, your old life starts to break down as a result of this. A lot of people go, if that's transforming, no thanks. And we go back to the old life. But intent, if we mean it, is the first stage of transforming our lives from what they are to what they could be. The thing about intent, however, that it's the need to sync the intent with what the language of life is telling us. Because if you sync the intent with that door that ain't meant to open, then you can have a very powerful experience called frustration. Because the intent then is not going to open the door because it ain't meant to open because it ain't your journey. I have this thing, flow equals go, stuck equals chuck. Or at least look again at what you're trying to do and how you're trying to do it. It might be how you're trying to do it that's not stopping it flowing. But in the end, life is not meant to be a bitch and then you die. It's not meant to be a series of frustrations and barriers. It's meant to flow. That's what we are. And if it's not flowing, then the language of life is saying something about us. Why isn't it flowing? And interestingly, I've experienced this so many times. I know other people have too. Once you acknowledge what the experience you're having is, maybe one you don't like, is saying about you, you acknowledge it, you bring it to the conscious, boom, there's an energy shift and the problem disappears. The pain in the arse in your life goes out. Because you've acknowledged it, you've read the language of life, and therefore you don't need to experience that anymore and come to that understanding because you have, and it's gone. Taking responsibility is a very, very fundamental part of this transformation. Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist, said, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, in order to avoid facing their own soul. And not taking responsibility is the absolute epitome of giving your power away. When we say it's all your fault that I'm in this situation, whether it's collectively or individually, what we're saying is, I don't have power over my life, you do. Taking responsibility is taking your power back and saying, okay, I'm taking responsibility for this because I have the power to change it. They're not responsible for it, they're not. They're just the language of life speaking to me about my responsibility. Therefore, I'm not going to play the blame game. This is my responsibility, and I'm going to deal with it. And when we do that, we take our power back and we can change things instead of going through life as a victim of other people's circumstance, which means we're powerless. That's little me. And we ask ourselves, why me? Why am I going through this experience? Well, through the process of vibrational attraction, vibrational magnetism, an expression of us is going out, and an expression of us comes back in the form of people, experiences, locations, jobs, everything. So therefore, what we're putting out is what we're pulling in. Why me? Because we're creating it. Bad luck, good luck, no such thing. Why do some people win, some people lose? Because some people pull that in, some people pull that in. You get people who they say, you meet them and they say, nothing ever happens in my life. And you say, well, what would you like to happen? And they go, well, I don't know really. Well, I don't know really goes out as a vibrational information field, and what comes back is a life where nothing happens. Why? Because you don't know really. So we're not victims. We think we're victims, and the control system wants us to believe we're victims, because then we will do nothing to change the fact that we're not expressing the power that we have. Why me? Ask yourself, because it's your choice. It's your choice and my choice in the sense of there's not some guy with an AK-47 on some other dimension saying to our consciousness, get in that body or I shoot. And in the same way, once we get in here, we attract what we attract. And when we take responsibility for that, we can stop attracting it. Why me? It's like the Oracle said in the Matrix. You've already made the choice. Now you have to understand it. You didn't come here to make the choice. You've already made it. You're here to try to understand why you made it. And as the message from the psychic 20 years ago said, arduous seeking is not necessary. The path is already mapped out. You only have to follow the clues. We are guiding you along a set path. If we get caught in mind and the limitations of mind, then we can not go along that path. Because mind is telling us, oh no, you don't do that in this world because you have to do this and you conform and all the rest of it. The difference is that when we make the choice of the path we want to journey on in this reality, in what we call a life, we're doing it from this perspective of perception. When we're trying to understand why we made it, we're doing it from this level of perception. So this sees it on one level, and this is going, I'd agreed to this, you must be having a laugh. Never. Well, this is seeing it in a different light. And it's the same collectively. Why us? Why are we here at this time now as this cusp of change is going on? Same thing. You've already made the choice, now you have to understand it. You didn't come here to make the choice, you already made it. Now you have to try to understand why we made it. Instead of complaining at the situation we're in, and again, this made the choice, this is trying to understand it. Once you break out of this into this, you then start to understand it. Because you see what we're experiencing from a totally different perspective. For instance, this sees, in the journey down the symbolic river, this sees the next turn on the river, no further. This sees the whole river from source to sea. So this is seeing an experience in the moment that this is having in a completely different way to how this is seeing it. For instance, you're going down the river on a canoe, it springs a leak. You paddle across to the bank and you sit there and you're angry and you're frustrated. Why me? Why am I so unlucky? And then some guy comes across and says, hey mate, you were so bloody lucky. There's a bloody waterfall around that next turn. And we can even override that through intuition. When we intuitively access this, we intuitively know, no, I'm going to stop for the day here. I'm not going to go any further today. And this might be saying, oh, we can go further. I'm not going any further. It's so many things we can be protected from by following our intuition. Why are we here collectively? We're here to break the spell. We're here to break the spell on the human collective mind. What a great thing. What a great thing to play a part in. To break this spell and to stop this human experience becoming this. And in the next few years, like I say, they're going to throw everything in desperation, like the cornered rat, trying to hold on to a control system that's falling. This is where we're going to need to have this perspective of I am consciousness, I'm having an experience, because that will make it so much easier as we go through this transformation and challenge, because if we're in this world and of it, those people are going to find the next few years very, very difficult. Because they will not have a perspective of what's going on, except everything's going crazy, and my God, what's going to happen next? This is a great line from a song. Freedom's just another word for nothing left to lose. Isn't it amazing how when you no longer have anything to lose, the butterfly emerges? Because it's fear of loss that keeps us in servitude so much. And when you've got nothing left to lose, suddenly all that's left is freedom. And that is going to be a very powerful experience that a lot of people are going to have in this next period of challenge as this cusp moves on. Just when the caterpillar thought life was over, it became a butterfly. It's amazing that when you're in, so many people have told the story that it was in their lowest moment of despair that boom, something emerged and transformed them. Nothing left to lose, freedom. Okay, I'm waking up, so what do? Well, I would suggest that we all stop making bloody excuses. You know, we can all come to the conclusion that there's this control system and it's doing this, and what about the children, and what about the grandchildren, what's going on? And then the list of excuses why we actually can't do something today. Well, there's a game on, and I've got to do this, and I've got to do that. Nothing is more important than focusing on what is happening, because everything comes from that. What can we do? We can refuse under any circumstances, no matter what the frickin' laws and the pressure and the imposition, we can refuse not to have the right to express our freedom of expression. Refuse under any circumstances to shut up. If vast numbers of people did that, this is the key to it all, what are they going to do? They don't have the numbers. We can stop focusing worship on celebrities and television and fake politicians and even sport. Not that I don't enjoy sport, but as long as it's there, peripheral vision, and not here. But worship, externalizing. And this is the biggest thing we can do. Human race, get off your knees. What are we doing down there? What are you doing? You're all that here's as it been and ever can be. Where have you bloody knees for? Well, only little me. No. If we get off our knees, the control system's over. Martin Luther King said, a man can't ride your back unless it's bent. And then there's the people in dark suits and uniforms. Hey, you got children and grandchildren and families as well. What are you doing serving a control system that wishes to impose a fascist state on your families? What are you going to say to your kids when the control system's in and it's controlling every facet of their bloody lives? Daddy, Mummy, Granddad, Grandma, what were you doing when the control system came in? I was helping to do it, dear. All the best with that conversation. What are we doing? Playing a part in, oh, it's me job. Well, get a bloody another one then. We're going to do this to our children because it's my job. What can we do? We can cease to serve the control system in uniform with a gun in our hands. We can do that. Soldiers are not there serving their country, serving their people. They're there serving the cabal that's seeking to enslave their people and their families. As Einstein said, the pioneers of a warless world are the youth that refuse military service. And more are equal to that, the adults beyond military service who support those that refuse to serve this control system in uniform. Oh no, you've got to serve your country. You serve your bloody country. I ain't doing it. Just like those wonderful Israeli young people. Know thyself. When you know thyself, when you know you are consciousness, the consciousness is going to get a machine gun and start shooting at aspects of itself. Mind does that. Mind fights. Consciousness doesn't even contemplate it. And that doesn't include just people in uniform. It means fighting for freedom. What's all that about? Let's fight for freedom. Let's have a riot in Athens and let's kill 3 people from the banking system. Hey, the world's a better place now. What you fight, you become. We don't want to fight this system. We need to cease to cooperate with it. This is a meeting of mind. One mind on a horse, one mind with something in its hand trying to do damage. Oh, they're 2 sides. They're one mind without consciousness. Freedom fighters, contradiction in terms. Cognitive dissonance. As Martin Luther King said, the limitation of riots, moral questions aside, is that they cannot win and their participants know it. Hence, rioting is not revolutionary but reactionary because it invites defeat. It involves an emotional catharsis, but it must be followed by a sense of futility. They want people to riot. It justifies more control. Nor do we need to meet this challenge with hate. That's playing away in the stadium we're trying to rid the world of. We don't need to hate these people. We just need to stop cooperating with them. Well, you know, if it's all the same with you, mate, I ain't doing it, okay? No hard feelings, bugger off. And then we've got this, the protest, the mass protest. I do understand that. It might have a part to play. But so many times these protests, they're what I call steam whistles. People go out in big protests with the banners and they kind of feel good about themselves and they go down the pub and say, at least we made our feelings felt. And then what happens? Bugger all. How many people marched in London against the invasion of Iraq, and what happened? Iraq was invaded. Protesting has such limitation. They don't care if we protest and walk through the streets and shout slogans and wave banners. They care if we come together, irrespective of colour, creed, gender, sexuality, any of it. Put our differences aside and unite behind what affects us all and all our families. This control system, this Orwellian agenda, is not trying to enslave black people or Jewish people or middle-class Americans or Hispanics or Australians or Indians. It's trying to enslave all of us. And what it wants to do is divide the target population against itself through these fake, ridiculous fault lines of race, religion, income bracket, so that we divide and rule the target population and they can pick us off one by one. They are terrified of us putting down those fake fault lines and coming together and uniting behind what we should all believe in: freedom for all, irrespective of who we are. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Someone else's injustice is our injustice. Because if we allow injustice there, eventually that injustice will come here anyway. In the end, we will remember not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends. Silence is consent. Can you hear us now? Silence is consent. Because while we're silent on these impositions, the impositions just keep going on and on and on. By our silence, we are acquiescing, even agreeing to them being imposed. The end of silence, the end of acquiescence. If we want to be free, then don't run and hide. Because you can put your head in the sand and ignorance is bliss, but only for a while. You can put your head in the sand because there's a tornado coming. But the tornado's still coming, your bum's in the air. If you lift it out the sand, take responsibility and face it, you can take avoiding action. Ignorance is bliss with a head in the sand, and then, bang, your ass is spinning up in the clouds. Strength does not come from physical capacity, it comes from an indomitable will. Mahatma Gandhi. Isn't it amazing how true that is? How you can see soldiers in uniform involved in truly extraordinary levels of physical courage and what we call heroism. And yet those same people are terrified of saying boo to another guy in uniform who's got more stripes on his arm than he has. Isn't it amazing? Where physical strength can come so easily, and moral strength not. That's to do with the moon matrix and the way that our perception is manipulated. Turkish proverb, a lion sleeps in the heart of every brave man, every brave woman, and it's not really bravery. When you let go of fear, you don't need bravery, you don't need courage. Courage is overcoming fear. When you let go of fear, because I'm all that is, has been, and ever will be, what's the worst that can happen to me? I leave this physical body of limitation and I become all that is, has been, and ever will be, in full awareness that that is what I am. My God, I'm terrified that that might happen. I don't know how I'm going to cope with the terror of thinking that might happen. Know thyself. Again, recurring theme, know thyself. We are consciousness. What is there to fear? Death? There is no death. Just putting the telescope down. We can meet this with fear. Oh my God, the police state! Or we can treat it with the emotion it deserves. What we have to do is comply. Compliance! That's what we have to do. Because if we don't comply, the control system's in desperate trouble. So it has to frighten us into complying for fear of not complying and the consequences that come from that. Well, hold on a second here. There's something about this that ain't right. When we look at this structure, we look there for the power. But why is that there? Because these silly sods are holding it up there. This is the power. They have to persuade them that they have the power, so they don't take the power to bring that crashing down. Fear of bringing it down through fear of not complying. Once we step out of the pyramid and refuse to cooperate with it, no violence necessary, by the way, then the pyramid starts to collapse because we're holding it together. It's a house of cards. That's all it is. Oh, it's the control system. It's a house of cards. Simple thing. People are being fined ridiculous amounts of money for putting their wheelie bins out on the wrong day or too many inches from the bloody curb. And people go, I don't know, what's the world coming to? It's the big brother state, innit? And then what you going to do? What time's that game show on, honey? Terrible a bloody thing, I don't know. What? What's that going to do? Don't tell me. That's Big Brother. It's little me that's causing that, not Big Brother. What if thousands of people, when someone is fined that money for that ridiculous thing, and like I say, they're just giving us more and more ridiculous things to see how much we'll take before we resist, and when we don't, they give us even more ridiculous things. What would happen if, when someone is faced with that fine, thousands and thousands of people in that area put their wheelie bins out in the wrong place on the wrong day, week after week after week after week? The system couldn't cope. We have the numbers. And I see this, your vote is your voice, be heard. Bollocks it is. How can the vote be your voice when the people you're given the choice of voting for that have any chance of forming a government are standing on the same postage stamp of political policy and perception? There's no choice. We've reached a point now where the vote becomes a voice when we refuse to vote. We refuse to play the game anymore. What would have happened at this recent election, this farce, if tens of millions of people had said, we've had a bellyful, we're not voting, it only encourages them. We are not voting because we're going to make a statement that we know this system is rigged and we're having it no more. What would have happened in these days that have passed since that election? The whole focus of the media and everything would have been, bloody hell, what's going on? Why this mass refusal not to vote? Now we've got a debate going. Now we're looking at why people haven't voted because the system is rigged. Now the system has to bloody start to change because it's lost its credibility. But instead, the majority trotted along to vote because they said, well, if you don't vote for them, they might get in. It doesn't matter! They're masks on the same face. So what if they get in? Same thing will bloody happen. Comply! No! No, no! Not if it's enslaving me and my children and imposing on my freedom. Comply, leave your home now it's foreclosed. No, no, no. Let's follow this through, shall we? Millions of people in the world are losing their homes, being foreclosed and ending up homeless. Let's follow this through. Why have you lost your home, my friend? Because I can't pay me mortgage. Why can't you pay your mortgage? Because I lost my job. Why did you lose your job? Because the great banking collapse, they can't get this, they can't get my company went bust. And who's taking your home away and saying you've got to leave? The banks that caused the fricking problem. And we are leaving! What are we doing? What are we doing? No, we won't leave when the banks have caused the problem and now they're telling us to leave to take the assets. No, we won't. And people who are not being foreclosed need to support those that are. We're all in this together. Compulsory vaccinations. No, no, no. You must do what we say. We have changed the law. Not if you are imposing on my freedom and my rights to be a free citizen with a free voice. No, no, no. What are they going to do? They come out of Downing Street, whether it's Clegg and his mate bloody Cameron or it's bloody Obama or whoever it is in America, and they say, we've had a discussion and this is what we're going to do. What if vast numbers of people say, well, we ain't doing it? They've got no power whatsoever. Their power comes in our acquiescence. Oh, but you can't defy the law. Okay, let's follow this through, shall we? By the way, while I'm talking, put your arms out and I'll put the handcuffs on, because that's what you're telling me. What you're telling me is this. We have no say in laws that are passed. And then we have to obey those laws. Well, okay, forget freedom then. Okay, what if they passed a law that says, we take your children away? Would you obey it? Well, no. So there is a line then. There is a line. It's just where is that line? And if a law does not respect human freedom, it does not respect human justice, it doesn't respect fair play, we should not be acquiescing to those laws. We should be refusing to acquiesce. What we need is not compliance, we need a non-comply dance. Where we beat to a different drum and we dance to a different drum. Where we refuse to acquiesce to this control system that seeks to enslave us even more than it already has. Non-comply dance. Do this, comply. No. No. But we need to do it en masse. Oh, we do it with a smile on our face. We're consciousness, all that has been, ever will be. Why shouldn't we have a smile on our face? And smile and feel for these people who are enclosed in mind trying to enslave us. But we need to do it en masse. Because if we don't do it in numbers, then people get picked off. That's what's happening. I am all that is, has been, ever will be. You cannot grant me my freedom. It is not your gift to grant me my freedom or take it away, because I am, we all are, freedom. Put another way, what would infinite consciousness do? Move perspective, little me, all that is. What would infinite consciousness do in the situations that we face, as against what would mind do? If it's not right, don't do it. If it's not true, don't say it. Absolutely right. You know what would change the world overnight? Is if we as a human race started doing what we knew to be right and just in the circumstances that we face, instead of making those decisions as so many people do and have long done on basis of what is right for me in this circumstance that I face. Okay, the just thing to do might not be in the moment the best thing to do, but it's the just and right thing to do. And if we started doing what we knew to be right when we're faced with these decisions, as opposed to what we perceive is right for us in the moment, although doing what is right for us in the eternity, then everything would change. If we want a world of peace, then be peaceful. It sounds trite, it sounds simple, but it's devastatingly profound. That's what we need to be with each other. You know, we have people going on anti-war marches who are hurling abuse at each other in their relationships and stuff like that. If we war with each other, then the collective version of that is warring collectively. If we want peace, let's be peaceful. If we want a world of kindness, then let's be kind. And it must come, for goodness sake. It must. If we're all kind to each other, we live in a kind world. Martin Luther King said, cowardice asks the question, is it safe? Expediency asks the question, is it politic? Vanity asks the question, is it popular? But conscience asks the question, is it right? There comes a time when one must take a position that is neither safe nor politic nor popular, but one must take it because it is right. And when enough of us take that stance, everything changes. The revolution is not a revolution of weapons, it's not a revolution of fighting, it's not a revolution of hatred, it's a revolution of perception, because everything changes. I am a lion then. I'm not the lamb I kept seeing in the mirror and the world kept telling me I was. And then that expresses itself out into the true nature of who we are. And miracles become possible. We're going into the epoch of what we perceive as miracles. It's just a greater understanding of the way everything works. And the system must fail when that happens. We're being offered, the truth vibrations are offering us in this time, the chance to open the key to our minds, the key to our hearts, which have long been closed by so many people. The key to the freedom on a level that we cannot comprehend, because until we expand our consciousness, we cannot be aware of the true nature of what freedom is. It's not even what we perceive in this world. Enough. Enough of this suppression. Enough of this slavery. Enough of this enslavement of the few by the many. As the poet Shelley said, rise like lions after slumber in unvanquishable number. Shake your chains to earth like dew, which in sleep had fallen on you. Ye are many, they are few. Enough! It's time to fly. It's time to fly. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you for coming. Thank you. Let's get on with it. Thank you. Thank you for coming. Thank you for coming. Thank you.
I've waited for years to see him. I've seen his DVD years ago, Brixton Academy. He's a legend. I think I fucking love him.
I've been to all David's events here. This is the best one ever. It's the most original, the most passionate, and it really is the greatest. I've never seen David so charged up. I've never seen him so full of stamina, so full of energy, and so there's so much inspiration in what he's said here tonight.
He doesn't pretend to be a guru or anything like that, and he admits himself he's struggling with the same, things that we are, and I think that's why he's fantastic to listen to.
All of it struck a chord. It's probably the same as everybody that's been there. Everybody's aware that, I don't know, that there's something going on. You get what I mean? And it's
worth travelling 600 miles.
It was worth, yeah, definitely.
I think the freedom aspect obviously is a really important part of it, because and knowing and actually everyone coming together. But I mean, I've been following David Icke for a couple of years now. I'm just kind of openly up to say.
What I thought stood out for me is that there was a lot of detail that David Icke gave that's not out in the public. It's not open knowledge. Some of his talk was a little controversial, I thought, but it was still on point of what he was saying. Everything seemed to lead up to one big crescendo at the end, which pointed every direction, no matter what field, race, color, creed you were from. It all pointed in one direction. So unification is the bottom line.
I liked the way he ended it today. It was particularly good to support me. He was much more, like you said earlier, he was much more animated today, much more kind of really like get up off your knees, do something, make decisions about things in your life, more ethical decisions. I think that was great. That's just cool for me. But it's great. David Icke, I love him.
The main thing is that we've all got to unite together and fight for freedom and democracy and justice, and fight against the big boys who are starting to rule the world. That we have to fight the New World Order, the Rothschilds, and all the people who try to dominate us in the name of evil. We've got to stick together and fight for our freedom and our democracy.
Stop all that we treasure. We watch it disappear for your moment's pleasure. We live in constant fear. You promised us justice. We got war instead. Now you must trust us before this planet's dead. Stop. Doing nothing.
For the past 20 years, David Icke has written books and travelled the world, sharing with anyone who will listen the truth of the world as he sees it.
The last 20 years has not just been about me writing books and doing talks, it's been about cleaning out the sense of limitation within myself.
David has experienced more than most could imagine on this journey.
They're laughing at you. They're not laughing with you.
Fine.
But where others would give up and hide, David has kept walking forward.
My journey has been fundamental to what I'm doing.
And now, 20 years on, when the evidence of what he has been saying is almost undeniable, people are waking up to the truth. That the world is not how we have been shown in the media or told by politicians. The truth that David has been sharing for 20 years. David Icke, still crazy after all these years.
Well, I was born in a place called Leicester in the English East Midlands in 1952. We were skint, and you didn't do anything with your life because no one around us was doing anything. They were working and just trying to survive. The idea that great things happened to me never entered my mind.
But great things were destined for David, and looking back, it's clear that every step on the journey has been part of a greater plan.
I became a footballer because it taught me to focus, to use discipline to create an outcome. I lost that career at 19 in very tragic, from my point of view at the time, and very painful circumstances, and therefore played professional football for over a year with rheumatoid arthritis in agony, because that activated within me a will not to give in and not to go under and not to fall apart under pressure and under stress. I then went into the television arena because that gave me a national profile, which when I came out with this stuff meant it wasn't going to be ignored. It also taught me about the media and how it works and what an irrelevance it is to informing the public what's actually going on in the world. I then went into the Green Party, which showed me the political arena and showed me what an irrelevance it was. And then I had my mass ridicule, which cleaned me out of the prison that most people live in, which is the fear of what other people think.
David Icke.
I was invited on because of all the furore going on with relation to truth vibrations when it was coming out.
Let me get the story right. The press claim that you claim to be the Son of God.
Mm-hmm.
Is that true?
Yes, you see, the thing is that it's quite funny, really. You know, 2,000 years ago, had a guy called Jesus sat here and said these same things, you would still be laughing. It's really, really funny that we've not really moved on that much. What I was trying to say is that I knew that we are all one infinite consciousness, and that what we call David Icke and Ethel Jones are just different points of observation of that consciousness. If you take this one consciousness to be God, or use the term God, I don't, but if you want to, then we are all sons, daughters, if you want to be politically correct, of God. And he took the ridicule route, and within minutes the audience are laughing all throughout the interview, virtually.
Was it a great shock for you to discover this at 38?
Well, I think the word is gobsmacked. There was a massive audience. I think it was something like 17 million in a country of 60-odd million. So, you know, it was a big ratio of the population watched that. You know, the best way of removing negativity is to laugh and be joyous. So I'm delighted that there's so much laughter in the audience tonight. But just let me say this.
They're laughing at you. They're not laughing with you.
Fine. I look back at it with not affection, because it was a nightmare to experience, but I know that it was necessary, and I know that a lot of has come as a result of it. When you survey the world today, you know, when a child dies in this world of preventable disease every 2 seconds, when the economic system of the world must destroy the earth simply for that system to survive, when you see all the wars and when you see all the pain and when you see all the suffering, is it a force of love and wisdom and tolerance that is in control of this planet? It was just crazy after that. The ridicule reached extraordinary levels.
The comeback from the public, I could never quite understand. People just pointing at you, laughing at you, and I mean literally stopping and pointing, whole families pointing and laughing.
When you face that scale of ridicule, you either go under or you say, I am me, I am free, and if you don't like it, we'll do the other thing, but this is me. And I chose to do the latter. And as a result of that, I let go of the fear of what people thought of me.
I mean, we get emails all the time from people that apologise and say, I watched the Wogan show, I too laughed, but I'm not laughing anymore.
One of the reasons that I have a lot of credibility with a lot of people now is because of things I said and wrote 15 years ago, which are now daily experience. If I had said 15 years ago, I can't say that because they'll laugh, they wouldn't have been said. And people would not now be saying, it's happening what that bloke said, and the credibility of that, which is the important part of it, not credibility for me, but credibility for the information, that then gets people to say, well, what else is he saying? It's not about prophecy. It's about uncovering what the agenda for the world is and then watching it unfold. It's knowing what the game plan is, and the idea is to expose the game plan so the more people are aware of it, the more we can intervene on it. We have got caught in a fake self-identity of believing we are the body. There is a calculated cabal that is systematically seeking to hold us in that illusory self-identity. And there is a vibrational change underway which is breaking up this fear-based, low vibrational state, and therefore the control system must fall. Challenges coming are enormous because the control system is going to be like a cornered rat. It's going to throw the kitchen sink and the plug. We're now entering a period where miracles become possible because they're not miracles, they're just a greater lack of limitation. That's all miracles are. If you want to make a difference in the world, then don't just be yourself, live yourself, and don't think of what will people think of me, because then you're not living your life, you're living theirs. What's all that about? I'm in a real good space 20 years on, because I can look back at all the real big challenges. I'm completely at peace with them. I know the challenges that have happened before, the ridicule, the rheumatoid arthritis, and the loss of my football career. I know they were all part of my journey. And not only are they part of the journey, they're a fundamental part of the journey. Because I'm not where I am today, doing what I am today, despite what has happened to me. I'm doing it because of what has happened to me, the things I liked and the things I didn't like. And I'm still there 20 years on, more and more determined than I've ever been. Because we're going to see some amazing changes in the world in the next few years. And some of them are going to seem to be catastrophic, but eventually they'll be seen to be the end of the prison and the start of the paradise. I can handle that.